A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to day 2, the afternoon session of the Oil Convention 2022. For those of you who might not have seen me before, I am the other MC. My name is Marcus, and I will be taking the rest of this afternoon with you. So welcome to everybody who's been with us 2 days straight. Thank you so much. Those of you joining us for day 2, and those of you joining us for the afternoon, all of you in your respective capacities, welcome. An amazing morning it was, and very, very insightful. We have only 2 sessions this afternoon, what we refer to as section 6 and 7, and I would like us to get straight into it because we're slightly behind schedule. So, this particular session, having heard from Tier 1 and Tier 2 subcontractors, this session is a panel discussion focused on the practical way to support those Tier 2 and Tier 3 subcontractors to win and execute these contracts. And as you know, Tier 2, Tier 3, as you may have heard from the morning sections, is where most of the suppliers and most of us really are expected to play and retain value from. To moderate this session, he is the current CEO and founding director of True North Consult Limited. It's a boutique management consulting firm based here in Uganda. The offices are in Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. Prior to joining True North as the CEO, he had a stellar career in the oil and gas industry, where he worked in various senior management positions with the Royal Dutch Shell PLC in their downstream operations in Africa, before joining Tullow Oil PLC as their pioneer head of human resource in Uganda. At Tullow, he also worked as group head of talent and competence development based in London, before subsequently being appointed as head of public affairs at Tullow, Uganda. Currently, he doubles as the CEO and principal consultant at True North and has offered HR and management consultancy services to several organizations, mostly in oil and gas, banking, telecoms, manufacturing, and selected government agencies. Please help me welcome the moderator for this session, Mr. Abdul Chibuka. He will then introduce his panelists and take us through that session thereafter. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Marcus. But I have to say you are given the wrong brief. Yes. So the profile introduces the old one, because it's very long. I now prefer to be introduced as the Executive Director at True North Consult, because that's where I'm going. The other one about Tullow is where I'm coming from. So I'm very, very privileged to be here to moderate this session. Good afternoon, everybody. In secondary school, we used to call this a graveyard session. When I left the country and worked elsewhere, I realized graveyard session was for the evening. But this evening, we don't have a graveyard because there's a cocktail. So I'm going to try and make sure that we manage the time here for 2 reasons. Because there's a cocktail that is waiting. I don't want to be between you and your drinks. But more importantly, because the next session is going to be moderated by my former boss. And I don't want him to bring up sanctions that he never brought up then. So I'll try and stick within the time. This session, which I'm going to moderate, is about supporting Tier 2 and Tier 3 contractors to retain value. Before I invite the panelists that are going to discuss it, let me just give you a little bit of context. I know there's been a lot of talk about the industry and presentations, but I don't want to assume that we are all on the same page regarding how we understand the terminology. So I'll just quickly clarify what is Tier 1, what is Tier 2, and what is Tier 3, so that we're all on the same page. And then I also try and attempt to define what value could mean, so that when my panelists come, they don't go into definitions. So, what are tier 1, 2, and 3 companies in this context of the industry? So, we have the licensees who have a contract with government, and then we have what we call the major subcontractors who have been making presentations here on day one. So the tier 1 contractors are those who are capable of picking up large scopes of work that are multidimensional and also have big financial muscle and technical capacity to execute multidimensional scopes of work. That is tier 1 in simple terms. Now, tier 2 are the companies that are subcontracted by the tier 1s to do some of the scopes of work under those large scopes. Now, one would say some people have defined tier 1 as the companies that have a direct contract with the licensee. But that is not exactly correct, because my company, True North, has a contract with Total. But we're not tier 1, because we only do manpower services. If you are not executing multidimensional scopes of work that require a lot of technical and financial capacity, you probably wouldn't qualify. There are many law firms who have contracts with Total and Sinok. They are not categorized as tier 1. So we are 2 and 3, depending on the scopes of work we are doing. Now, this conversation is about how do we make sure that the one who got the contract from the one who got the contract and the one who got the contract also retains value. Because there's always a risk that by the time the contract or the work reaches tier 3, meaning you got the contract from the subcontractor of the contractor, the value could have gone. Or your scope of work could be too small for you to get sustainable value. Or, as some people have used the phrase, the juice could have been squeezed out of the fruit. So this is what this conversation is about. These companies face risks, but also have opportunities they face, and that's what the conversation is going to be about. Now, we are going to think and talk about value creation, or destruction for that matter, in the context of financial value, in the context of technical capacity, in the context of technology transfer, in the context of growth, from growing from a small company, tier 3, to tier 2, to tier 1, or growing even your capacity to supply services outside the border, since the project traverses borders. So that is the context in which we are going to think about value. We are going to think about value in terms of sustainability. How do tier 2 and 3 companies sustain the operations over the long term? Those are the conversations we are going to be talking about. And very importantly, how do they manage their technical, their legal, their human resource, their operational risks? That is going to be the context of this conversation. And to lead us in this conversation, I have a very eminent panel of people who I'm going to invite one by one. The first one is Mr. Shivan Hatton, who traveled all the way from Johannesburg. Please come up. Shivan is the head of MASH Specialty for Africa. He's based in South Africa and is responsible for MASH's risk advisory, just take a seat, placement and claim services for all specialty clients in Africa, as well as international clients with a specialty risk in Africa. He joined MASH in 2013, and he has been involved a lot in client engagement. So, please join me in welcoming Shivan. The second discussant is a very familiar name. I will apologize for those who will be bored, but he's Mr. Jeff Baitwa. Jeff is one of the old boys. I won't say big boys. He only became a big boy recently with the new contract they have. But he's one of the old boys in the oil industry. Jeff, please come up. He's the current... No, let me start with the correct title. I don't know who wrote this. But Jeff founded Three-Way Shipping Services in 1996, a firm which specializes in freight services between Uganda and the rest of the world. He's currently presiding over the restructuring and repositioning of Bro Group in the market, and is setting up a new governance structure that will actually look after how all its subsidiaries and partners will look. I think when they announce companies that are now, is it tier 1 or tier 2? Subcontractors for logistics, Three-Ways was one of those that were announced. I'm happy to also say that Jeff is the current treasurer of the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum. Put your hands together for Jeff. The third panelist is Ms. Margaret Obo. Ms. Margaret Obo is in charge of the midstream activities in the Petroleum and Mining Division of URA. She handles compliance activities of companies in the upstream oil and gas sector, and she has done that for a period of 10 years. So if you have any questions on tax or tax risk, please prepare them while Margaret comes up. Please give a round of applause for Margaret. My next panelist is Mr. Marvin Ndaula. Marvin is a strategy and pricing expert with 10 years working experience in international companies, banking services, and construction industry. He's currently the head of commercial strategy and performance at Hima Cement, a subsidiary of Lafarge Holcim. Please put your hands together for Marvin. The next panelist is also a very familiar name, Karuhanga, but the smaller one. So Elson, please come up. Elson doesn't require a lot of litigation. He's one of the most visible lawyers in Uganda and one of the very active ones in the oil and gas sector. But to be a little bit more formal, I'll say that he works in the litigation and energy law department of Kampala Associated Advocates. I'm not sure if Matthew is here. So my final panelist is Matthew Chaligonza. He's the head of national content at Sinok Uganda Limited. He has over 16 years experience in the sector. And I want to introduce the rest of the qualifications. Please you put your hands together for Matthew. All these panels have very, very amazing qualifications. If you read here, you would take a whole day. I was just about to start mentioning Matthews. I see Six Sigma and other things, which is like a belt in Kung Fu. But I chose to skip the qualifications. So very welcome, my panelists. The way we are going to run this is we are going to start with getting an overview of some of the typical risks that are involved in the oil and gas sector. And because we are talking about value creation and retention, you can never think of a better person to talk about risks and how they can be mitigated than an insurer. So we are going to start with a presentation from Shivan, from Marsh, and then after we'll have another presentation from Marvin of Hima. Once those two are done, we'll open up a panel conversation on the subject that I introduced. So whoever is in the controls, kindly help us put up the Marsh presentation as I invite Shivan to make it. I don't know if there's a pointer here. Oh, he's got his own pointer. That's a good way of managing risk. You can come up and make the presentation. Please put your hands together for Shivan. Thank you.
Thanks, Abdul. I'm forever paranoid about technology not working, so I've got my laptop, my notes, everything is risk mitigation plans that I've got in place. So I'll take a very quick presentation for you. Firstly, thank you for inviting us to discuss risks and insurance topics today. There might be some duplication with some of the other content during this convention, but I'll focus on kind of 4 key elements. Contractual arrangements and how that can bring risk to various parties in a contract, how risk is allocated in contracts, how insurance can help to support mitigate those risks, and finally, some key pillars of adding value through the risk landscape. Is the presentation back up? Let's just... Perfect, thank you. Just as some underlying context, it's useful to understand that there are several stakeholders within an insurance transaction, and all of these stakeholders need to come together to ensure an adequate risk transfer solution on behalf of the insured. So there are financiers and bankers who are ultimately financing the insured. There'll be insurers and reinsurers providing financial security in the event of a loss, loss adjusters, warranty surveyors, and risk engineers providing technical input, brokers and risk advisors supporting the insured through the process. So there's a number of different parties, and they all need to come together at the end of the day. And you know, what is a contract, and what does that look like? So contract is a legally binding agreement. I think everyone will know that here, between the parties privy to the contract. And could be the owner, could be the contractor, could be subcontractors, tier 1, 2, 3, whatever it may be. And it formally documents the technical scope, the responsibilities of various parties, the compensation arrangements, and a number of different things. But also, it formally records the risk allocation between contracting parties, typically through indemnity clauses. And then insurance clauses are also included in there in a way to enforce certain mandatory coverages to be placed between the contracting parties. And there'll be many different types of contracting philosophies that dictate the risk allocation and the insurance requirements, and that'll depend from time to time and the contracting environment that's currently in place. Just as a very kind of typical contractual structure that we see, you know, there's several links in there, and this diagram will, once it's finished, will show a complex set of interactions, and the risk comes in at various elements of these contracts. There'll be a supply agreement as well as a purchase agreement, as with any transaction. There may be a lender's agreement, and lenders are keen to ensure that there's adequate insurance in place to protect their financing. Contractors' agreements across various levels of tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 contractors, and this extends to various subcontractors in very different ways. So there's risk in lots of different places wherever there's a contractual obligation. And things can go wrong, right? So if you don't get it right, a lack of execution could lead to delays, poor interaction leading to additional risk being carried between various parties, or worse, gaps in terms of where risk is currently in place and not being protected in the right way. And that's where insurance policies come in. And in the worst case, you know, there's no adequate protection for those risks that they have. So, you know, how do we get risk transferred? So many of the risks that we'll see tend to be insurable through project insurances, property insurance, delay in startup, marine risk, third-party liability, and so on and so forth. And alongside the owner's risk, there's also a contractor risk. And when we talk about contractor, that could be any different level of contractors that we're talking about. And some of it will be allocated to the owner, some of it to contractors. But what we'd ideally like to do is a single kind of overarching level of insurance that covers the entirety of the risk that's in place. But realistically and typically, you don't get the entirety covered in one place. There's always an element of risk that's either uninsurable, in which case everyone needs to know what it is, or there's responsibility outside of the main policy that will need to be insured by various contractors and so on. And broadly speaking, you can, I don't know whether that's very eligible from where you're sitting, but broadly speaking, we can categorize that into various two sectors. The owner's responsibility across various different insurance policies, and the contractor's responsibility as well. And then once the project is operational, then the contractor is released from their liability, and the owner will be responsible going forward. So what does a typical insurance transaction then look like? If we know that what we've showed here is the kind of the risk landscape that we have, then the insured on the far left of the screen can access capital and security to help protect them through the insurance industry. And they'll access that insurer locally in the middle of this diagram through a retail broker. But if there's complexity or if there's size and scale involved and there's not enough capacity and capital to insure and adequately protect a risk, then there may often be reinsurance purchased through in international markets where there may be capital through using a wholesale broker to play a part. So that's the whole chain there. Left to right is the insurance transaction, and in the event of a loss, assuming there's adequate protection, then the claim goes right to left on the screen from the markets through back to the insured. And whether this is at a owner level, at a contractor level, this stands true for whatever it may be, and across all the insurance policies that we kind of referred to on the previous slide. So where does value come into all of this? At every single chain, there's value to be created, and whether that's capacity generation of helping the insurers in the middle to take more risk and create more capital for them, or in various different ways. And so in our view, there's more than one way of just generating value. There are many, but I've highlighted kind of 3 areas that we think really work to where we stand, and from an insurance standpoint that we can bring to various clients all over the world. Risk engineering is the first one. We have a global footprint as a client, as an entity, and our scale of clients means that we visit hundreds and different sites every year and see a huge variety of risk. This allows us to understand kind of what's on the forefront of the risk landscape that every client faces day to day, and how various industries put measures in place to minimize that risk. So this global experience allows us to bring those solutions from across the world to our clients wherever they are across the world as well. So a learning in North America can then be implemented elsewhere in Africa, for example. Then the second piece, and I think this is a critical one from our standpoint, it's loss mitigation. We see losses of all sorts and types from around the world, and losses happen. That's why insurance is in place, so that you can protect against those losses. But what's important for us is to learn from those losses, understand the trends, and help support our clients from around the world to understand the loss trends, see where they're coming from and the different scenarios, and really help our clients around the world to learn from those losses so that they don't have to have the same experiences. And I guess the last one is training and skills development. Again, it kind of cuts through all of these things that we're talking about. And all of this kind of global experience allows us to have a significant amount of kind of knowledge built within our business and within our industry. And I think fundamental pillar for us in our value proposition and our industry's value proposition is to drive skills transfer, thought leadership, and enable skills growth and development. And lastly, as we talk about that, part of that skills transfer is our continued commitment to developing the skills and team in our own operations in Uganda. It's a key pillar for us, and that's also a key aspect of delivering value. With that, Abdul, I'll hopefully set the scene for you. I will, for the panel. I won't be around for the panel, unfortunately, but I'll hand back over to you for further discussion. Thank you.
Round of applause for Shivan. I forgot to relay Shivan's apologies. He's under the weather and was literally dragged here to make the presentation, so he will not be able to stay. But I'm sure if you have any difficult questions, you can push them to me. I'll try and figure out how to relay them to him. Oh, you thought I was going to say I would answer them here? No, I wouldn't. Let me invite Marvin from Hima, so that he makes the presentation. Once we're done with the presentations, we will go into the panel discussion. Marvin.
Thank you, Abu. Good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. And I would like to, of course, begin by thanking the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum and also the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development for organizing and putting together this very informative and very wonderful convention. I bring greetings from Hima Cement. And of course, I would like to begin by mentioning that the three areas that I'm going to be focusing on, or that my presentation is going to be focusing on, are around how we can enhance value retention through the tiers 2 and 3. I'm going to take us through the journey of Hima Cement and what products and services we have come up with to ensure that we foster this value retention. All right, so all right, as I get my presentation, I will talk through it. So as Hima Cement, we embarked on this journey about 3 or 4 years ago. And we have had an able team that has been handling any queries and any engagements on oil and gas. And we've been meeting different parties, different contractors. Right, thank you. And our key focus has been on how we can enhance or add value, just like I mentioned, to the tier 2, tier 3, and tier 1. I would like to begin, obviously, by this slide, a very precious slide for us as Hima Cement, because we are engaged in a geocycle, one of a kind, and the only cement manufacturing and selling company that actually has this wing. And this geocycle is basically around us adding value on waste management. Hima Cement is very keen on health and safety, control of CO2 emissions, but majorly waste management. And so currently what we do is we basically have what we call the biomass, the coffee husks, the groundnut husks, the rice husks that we source from the local community, and then we use this as fuel. Now, in regards to what value we are going to bring when it comes to oil and gas, we have already started embarking on different avenues and different ways on which we can have waste management. We all know that there are there's going to be a lot of waste that is going to be from the activities in the oil and gas sector. And Hima Cement is very keen on making sure that we have waste management for all this waste that will be coming through. In particular, I would like to highlight that there are two particular wastes that we are really embarking on, and to see how to control or have waste management on these. The first one is on the oil well drill cuttings, and also the other is on the petroleum sludge. And I would like to give the confidence to everyone here that we have an able team, and we have a facility that has been set up specifically to make sure that we can have this waste management done. The second slide is basically around oil well cement, but I would like to begin by highlighting one of our innovations and one of our babies this year, and that is the Innovations Tech Lab. It's one of a kind. You will not find it anywhere in the country. And through this Innovation Tech Lab, we basically are focusing on 4 areas. And I'm very sure that as I go through these 4 areas, the construction contractors will get the attention of the construction contractors. So the very first one is on the tests of fresh concrete and hardened concrete. I know that at least in the construction sector, there is a lot of resources and finances that have been used to make these tests. Now, as Hima Cement, we've come up with a tech lab that can handle all the tests around fresh concrete and hardened concrete. I know that there are also other contractors that would like to get knowledge of the optimal mix designs. How can I make sure that I can optimize my strength in concrete, I can optimize my workability in concrete, and overall, I can optimize my durability. And these 3 areas are what we focus on when it comes to the fresh concrete and the hard concrete tests. Then the second one is the tests on the dry mortar mixes. And I know that there's also an urgent need when it comes to tests around tile adhesives and grout. And in the Hima Cement Tech Lab, we have this service for you where we can obviously test slip resistance and anything concerning the properties of a good tile adhesive and a good grout. Then thirdly is optimizing of mix designs. This one we can do either on ground where the project is, or you can come together and we formulate a mix design that can help you in terms of putting up a reliable structure. Of course, I'm very sure that when it comes to construction contractors and subcontractors that will be getting some of these projects, this is one service that you would need. Then fourth and lastly really would be around fuel tests. We also do fuel tests. We do tests on fuel that will be used for biomass. And these tests are around what we call the calorific value. So if you would like to know what this biomass is going to deliver in your company concerning the calorific value, and also how much moisture content is involved in this biomass. And then also, if at all you would like to concentrate a little bit on the chemical analysis around the biomass, we have these tests ongoing in our lab. And so I believe that even through this lab, we will be empowering our construction contractors to get from Tier 3 to Tier 2 with the knowledge that they need to come up with optimal mix designs. Of course, I cannot stop before I mention the oil well cement, which is also going to be the first of its kind in the central and east region of Africa. What we've been doing is we've been importing this oil well cement from the likes of Greece, from China. But Hima Cement has come up with a locally manufactured, or nationally, yesterday we were corrected, nationally manufactured oil well cement. And normally what this oil well cement that has in CO2 emissions is about 1,100 kilograms per ton. However, with this national oil well cement solution that we are providing, we have reduced the CO2 emissions from 1,100 kilograms to 450 kilograms. And the beauty about it is also that we have a financial saving. So for anyone who's going to be using this oil well cement, let me say in Tier 1, you will have a financial return. The saving is on more than 40% what you would have imported and landed the oil well cement in the Graben. Then the fourth bit, and this is also a product that we are very keen on as Hima Cement, is PowerMax. We have a wide range of products, over 9 products. But for this convention, I I have come to basically mention the PowerMax. It is a high-strength cement that can be used for high-strength construction works, but what's very unique about it is that its CO2 emissions are lower than all the other products that are 42.5 strength. And then secondly, it has a pozzolanic component that can counter any cement sulfate attacks. And I'm very sure that for those who have used cement in concrete, you know that this is one of the issues that face concrete mixes. So with that pozzolanic component, it can actually counter that. And then it is also good in the pocket because it saves you 2% to 3% in terms of your cost when you use it. Then the fourth aspect is it has a low heat of hydration that eventually helps with prevention of concrete cracks. So that product right there is already being used by some of the major players in Tier 1, and it has already begun gaining a very good reputation in its usage, in its workability, in its durability, and we are very, very sure that at least for the Tier 2 and Tier 3 that will be looking for a cement that can help with heavy construction works, PowerMax is going to be the solution. So, of course, I would like to end the presentation by saying that as Hima Cement, we are very determined and we are cognizant of the fact that we have to at least find a way of making sure that we work together with all the players through Tier 1 to Tier 3 and help them in value retention. And we obviously are also working around making sure that after we have worked together, we provide solutions in products and services to ensure that you have financial return, you have the capacity development, and we obviously bring in industrial expertise to help you develop from the tier you're in to the next tier. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Marvin. I think I'll have to come back to you because we probably listened enough about the innovative products, and I want to congratulate Hima Cement on all those innovations, which I think will play a big role in the industry, especially on the construction side. But I'm sure the audience will still want to hear more about Tufunira Muwa. Where do we really gain? I think I'll come back to you on that. But to kick off this conversation, which I think the audience has been very eager to listen to, around value retention for Tier 2 and 3 contractors, we have a very diverse panel. Some people are direct contractors in the industry. Other people are on the side of regulation, like the URA. And I think to get this context right, I want to kick off with people from the industry. So I'm going to pose one question to two people here, and I want them to respond to it in their own different ways. I'll start with Jeff, but it's the same question that I'll put to Elson. So most of yesterday was about the licensees and Tier 1 contractors talking. Now, when we talk about value retention, in the context that I described it, profitability, financial sustainability, technical capability, managing risks, and so on and so forth. I want Jeff and Elson to share with us their thoughts on what they think the licensees, Total, CNOC, and other licensees, and UNOC and others, and the Tier 1 contractors, what should they do for you? So this is a call. It's an open space for you to call Tier 1 and licensees. What do they need to do for you at Tier 2 and 3 to be able to, one, create value? Because we can't talk about retaining something we haven't created. But very important, also retaining that value in the long term. Jeff, you come with a wealth of experience from the exploration sector, or the exploration phase. You are probably very well aware of the risks that, and the the different corners you had to go past to now win contracts in the next phase. I think your fingers have been burnt at some point. I don't know to what extent. I think you're very well placed to tee up this conversation and share your experience.
Abu.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that question. My fingers have grown again for information. Let me take off the mask. My fingers have grown again. So I'm still waiting for the nails to grow. From my experience, I think first there's need for transparency in these relationships between the Tier 1 and the contractors. And by transparency, I refer to looking at this as a relationship-based, not as opposed to transactional-based relationship or engagement. So if you look at, or if you treat each other on a relationship basis, then it's very likely you'll work together. And in the process, that will enhance us to retain value. The other aspect, of course, which is important is supplier development. A number of suppliers need to be encouraged in various ways. And already, as I know from the previous round of activities, the Tier 1s spent some good time doing the development of suppliers. We hope that, the licensees, we hope the Tier 1 contractors will follow the same and enable 2 and 3 also to stand up. Supplier developers in different forms. You're looking at EHS, you're looking at aspects like business structuring, things like account management and ABCD. We also think having reasonable contractual tenures is very important, because giving someone a contract for 1 week or a month or 2 weeks may not, and yet you're asking for so much in return in terms of standards and other aspects, sometimes doesn't augur well, so there's no value retained. More or less, you're just hoping that person will fulfill their contractual obligations on ground, or being used to do that, as opposed to enabling you grow your business or retain value. Of course, there are other things the Tier 1 or licensee have to help us with, or to pass on to the rest of the tiers, minimizing some of the risk burden these other parties have, which comes from payments, which is financial. Sometimes people are taking so long to pay, or have taken long to pay, or a very unpredictable payment cycle. So if that is also put in place or taken care of, I think value retention will be greater. Of course, the last things which may not be out of the hands of the licensee and the Tier 1s is a conducive tax environment. But I believe we have someone here who will talk about that in detail as we engage. Training and skilling is another one for that level of contractors. So in a nutshell, those are the few aspects I can pick up based on my past experience and what I see going forward. I hope I've responded appropriately.
Thank you very much, Jeff. A round of applause for Jeff. I think Jeff has touched a number of subjects. I hope we have a repertoire for the conference, because I see us generating a report from this particular session and sending it to the licensees and the Tier 1 contractors. These are very, very specific insights and recommendations. Of course, the last one about tax, I think you've reported to the police itself, since we have someone from the URA, but we're going to come back to her. Elson, what are your thoughts on the same subject?
It is only fair to say that Jeff has really answered the question very exhaustively. However, I'll just point out that the licensee and the Tier 1 contractors, of course, have to realize, and I'm sure they do realize, and Matthew will confirm, that we are in this, or they are in this together with their subcontractors. The reason why licensees need subcontractors to have a certain amount of capacity is because you are dealing with a highly flammable substance. You may ignore the person who is in charge of guarding, and then you may end up burning the facilities. I mean, you're building a pipeline. You have to understand that any problem along that route can have a serious effect on our environment, and such an effect, even before you start building, you already have people who now have even changed their names to Stop Eacop. There's someone I've seen on social media called Stop Eacop. that is their name. They don't live here, they don't work here. When they wake up, when they sleep, their dream is to stop Eacop. So such a person is looking for you to fail. So we have to be in this together. So it's important, therefore, for the licensee and the tier 1 contractors to understand the value of those who they are working with. Of course, it's also education and training is very important in building capacity. Even those who are tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, I don't know how many tiers we have, need to understand that all of you are working together to deliver a product and to conclude a project. This project has standards, it has contractual timelines, it has regulatory requirements. So an understanding of the task. Of course, supply development and training has been said. Capacity building has been said. Lobbying. I think there's a lot of, I wouldn't call it, well, we can call it lobbying, a lot of negotiation between the licensees, for example, and the government. Because at the end of the day, this oil belongs to the people of the Republic of Uganda. It is their resource 100%, and their government is the one that is managing it on their behalf. And the discussions and the lobbying should really cascade all the way down. It makes no point having a tax exemption for Total and then a tax on McDermott. Even at that level, before you come down. If you are giving a customs relief to someone to bring in pipes for a pipeline, and you've given that to Total, and then Total has subcontracted someone else to do it, if that person doesn't have the exemption, then you are making a distinction without a difference, and distinctions without differences shouldn't be made. So yes, lobbying should be done together. Training and education should be done together, but also the tier 2 and tier 3 contractors need to have a proper understanding of the global, by global I mean the project, of the project deliverables that the licensees have to cope with, and the tier 1 contractors. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you say distinction without difference?
Yes, difference, which is the same. The difference is the same.
That is too much English, eh?
It means the difference is the same.
Thank you, Elson. Elson touched a subject. I don't know whether he saw the executive director of the Petroleum Authority entering, or whether it was in his notes before. But I'm going to use this opportunity to actually present Mr. Rubondo. Just the audience will allow me to play back something very small. This conversation is about value retention for tier 2 and 3 contractors. And the worry we have, and why we're discussing this, is that these are subcontractors of subcontractors of subcontractors. Now, the fear is that by the time it reaches tier 3, the value could have been taken out, whether in the negotiation or in the way works are scoped. And so we're trying to have a conversation about value retention. And Jeff just shared some very interesting insights on what could be done. One of the things he talked about, which is of a big issue, which I want to raise to you, he talked about contract tenures. Now, we know that contracts, especially the high-value ones, come to you for review or approval. And one of the things he raises is that the tier 2 and tier 3 subcontractors need to have contracts of reasonable tenures for them to begin to develop their capacity, to put in place the human resource. If they are going to negotiate loans from banks, they have better leverage because the contracts are fairly long. We don't know how you are managing that from a regulatory perspective, but it's also a very clear message to the licensees in the room and the tier 1 subcontractors. He also touched a very important one about payment cycles. You know, sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes it's 60 days, but you know 60 days become 90, depending on when you invoiced and when you received the purchase order and so on and so forth. The story becomes longer. So that's also a very clear message. And again, I thought that would be of interest to you. And the final one on supply development. But Elson touched a very important subject towards the end. And to me, I think that was more a message to the tier 2 and 3 subcontractors themselves, to recognize the international nature of the industry in which they play and try and work towards the standards. But let me go to the last point that Jeff touched, and I'm going to move to Maggie. So Jeff, in his presentation, said for tier 2 and 3 contractors to retain value, or at least to start to create value, they also need to have a favorable tax regime or favorable tax treatment. And that was before Elson went in to talk about distinctions without differences and so on. But he was talking about the tax exemptions that pertain to, or at least the tax treatment for the licensees and tier 1 subcontractors. We have Ms. Margaret Obo in the room. I think we can have a conversation about, one, let her clarify to the audience the tax exemptions that will work across the 3 tiers or 4 tiers. I'm introducing a 4th one and making now the licenses the 1st tier because they have a tax treatment for customs clearance and so on. So how will it work for the licensee, the tier 1 and the tier 2 and 3 contractors? Can you give that clarification to the audience, please? And after that, I have a more difficult question for you.
Thank you so much. The licenses and level 1 contractors have been here in the upstream for such a long time. And when you look at also the midstream law, that is the Eacop, the East African Crude Pipeline Act of 2021, the licensee, level 1 and level 2 contractors have also been granted exemption. I think that is Schedule 2 of the Act. So in essence, for them, they have clear exemptions, the midstream level licensee, level 1 and level 2 contractors. Now the issue comes to level 3 contractors and level 2 contractors in the upstream. So probably that's where the issue is, because they don't have specific exemptions when you open the laws. However, it could be because of probably not knowing that they could utilize some of the customs procedure code, for example, for customs. We have one where the contractors are 3rd level contractors, both in the upstream and midstream, and 2nd level contractors in 2nd and 1st level contractors in the upstream. They can utilize, for custom purpose, they can utilize temporary custom procedure code, which grants them exemption at import duty. So I've been wondering why companies have not been taking up this option. Because unlike that, that's also the Custom Act also grants exemption on plant and machinery. But the universal exemption for those contractors that are not licensed would be the temporary importation of plant and machinery, where you don't pay any import duties What you need is just to execute a guarantee. You get an insurance company. You execute a guarantee fee that is equivalent to the tax that you should have been assessed or paid at that point. And then the bond has a period of 3 years. It is renewable in case you import in plant and machinery, which is supposed probably to be used for 7 years or whatever is the period of the project. So meaning that after 3 years, you can renew the bond. And then the catch is those plant and machinery are supposed to be re-exported. So custom officials are going to ensure that at the end of the project life, you re-export. Else, if these are not re-exported, then you pay the applicable taxes. Now that is for custom. When it comes to domestic, the internal taxes, we also have exemption in respect to withholding tax, the 6% withholding tax. But like what you saw in today's monitor, the people who have today's monitor, page 9, you have seen that with effect from 1st July 2022 this year, there's now a checklist that for you to be able to benefit from the 6% withholding tax, you must be able to comply with that list that has been put up. When it comes to companies in the midstream, because there's some place where we see 3 years, a company should have been operating for 3 years, but we've also appreciated that for some, we give some special treatment to companies, say contractors, because we know that we cannot really wait for 6 years, for 3 years to grant them 6% withholding tax. So on a case by case, we actually grant both contractor 1, contractor 2, even contractor 3, depending on how when we request for contracts and then you ably submit, we've been actually granting. You've told me to highlight on licenses, level 1, level 2, level 3, but where the law is clear.
Let me ask specifically about deemed VAT.
Okay.
Whether there's consideration to extend it to tier 2 and 3.
Okay,
the Procurement Authority is also here, so you can both make a quick decree here.
Okay, deemed VAT for level 1 contractors in the upstream is regulated by the VAT Act. So that one, we don't have an issue. When it comes to level 2 contractors in the midstream, so we have deemed VAT provision for licensee level 1 and level 2 contractors. It doesn't extend to level 3 contractors. However, still how we can, the companies can get value from the contracts is that although they don't have deemed VAT, we also have a refund regime that if you are compliant with the IFRIS, you know the IFRIS, the Gazette of 550, was it 595? Yes, of 2020. So if you purchase from suppliers that are on IFRIS and for any tax period, you have an amount claimable above 5 million, you can request for a refund and we shall grant you that refund. So, yeah, even if there is not deemed for third level contractors, we can actually refund the money. What we need to do is that you must be able to comply with the IFRIS provision, meaning that you're supposed to purchase from IFRIS registered taxpayers. We wouldn't also want to become a cost at the end of that day, because now the law is clear that for suppliers that are not registered for IFRIS, if a contractor, even if it is level 1, level 2, level 3 contractors, and you have purchased, it means that you will not be entitled to input VAT for level 3, and even that cost will not be granted at the end of that day. So although there might be an issue of cash flow in respect to the third level contractors, but the end of it is that we can still refund whenever you hit 5 million and above in any tax period. Please just lodge in a return and we shall refund the money.
Thank you very much, Maggie. I think, put your hands together for Maggie. This is free consultancy. This is free consultancy. I want to move to, maybe I think we need to have a conversation in the chamber to organize a separate session on tax, because the number of issues and advice we require is enormous. So I think it's one of the actions we are going to take. I'm sure the rapporteur is noting that we will have a session for suppliers and just focus on tax and see what value we can save and manage the tax risk. I want to ask Matthew, and this is a question I'm also going to put to the other panelists as we start to wind down the session. I said I don't want to run into Jimmy's session. I know what trouble he'll give me if we do. But Matthew, you are the only one representing a licensee here. Now, licensees really have the control on the value that goes down the food chain, as it were. You're the ones who define the contract frameworks, you define the scopes of work. You really dictate the terms under which tier 2 and 3 companies eventually will work. So we would like to know what CNOC and other licensees are doing to make sure that tier 2 and 3 contractors get value from the contracts and participation in the industry. But more importantly, what are you doing in terms of long-term value retention for all the players in the value chain?
Thank you so much, Abdul. As CNOC and the joint venture partners, there are 2 ways we are handling this. One, directly. There are things that we are doing directly as JV partners to ensure that value retention at the level of tier 2 and tier 3 is achieved. And there are also things that we are requiring our tier 1 contractors to do to ensure the same. Allow me to start with what we are requiring our...
Just before you go on, Matthew, let me interrupt you. Let me ask the audience to prepare your questions and comments. After Matthew has spoken, I'll open the floor to the audience to ask you questions. I'm sure you have a few questions and comments that you'd want. We'll have about 5 or 10 minutes to give to the audience. Sorry, Matthew, continue.
Thank you. Yes, one of the things that we are requiring our tier 1 contractors to do is to ensure that they have payment milestones or payment terms that feature more frequent payment milestones, shorter durations where possible, upfront or advance payments to help tier 2 and tier 3 contractors with purchases of materials. That's one of the interventions we are requiring our tier 1 contractors to do. Secondly, we are encouraging what we call the labor-based approaches to some of the less complex activities. You talked about an activity like fencing. For example, if we have 2 proposals where one bidder is proposing to bring in a machine to do work that would otherwise be done by like 100 laborers, we will be inclined to support the bidder that has a system or is using labor-based approach, especially when the work is less complex. So that is also one of the other things we require how we are approaching this to ensure that there is value retention at that level and value created on ground. We are also requiring our tier one contractors to unbundle. We have, as operators or as IOCs, have unbundled already, but some of these big packages are still so big, so we require our tier one contractors to unbundle their packages further to ensure they put aside scopes that can be done at tier 2 and 3, like civil works and others, to ensure that there is value retention and there are more tier 2 or 3 contractors able to participate. Yeah, we are also encouraging joint ventures at level at that tier 2 and 3, and not just joint ventures with international companies, which are happening and very well, but we're also encouraging joint ventures between local companies themselves, especially where they add value and create a niche with each other. Yeah, and on the side, that is just a snapshot of what we're encouraging or requiring our tier one contractors to do. But as CNOC and the other joint venture partners, we are directly involved in ensuring that there is value retention through several capacity development and training programs. One of the training programs we are having is the Train the Trainer program, which we are doing, and we are ensuring that universities and higher institutions of learning like UPIC and vocational training institutions, we are training their teachers who are able to teach other and certify other students to create a critical mass of trained personnel that can be employed by these tier 2 and 3 contractors, and afterwards be able to be used by our tier 1 and ourselves. So that is one of the trainings we are doing, the Train the Trainer program that is going on. There is also the welder training and certification that is ensuring that we are producing internationally certified welders to work in future on the pipeline, but also in the meantime be employed by these tier 2 and tier 3 contractors. This also happens with the heavy goods vehicle drivers training and ECITB training. Now, there is also an effort by CNOC and the joint venture partners to ensure that there is enterprise development and training. Last year alone, CNOC trained 150 SMEs in several aspects of enterprise development, and we are also working very closely with the Stanbic Bank Business Incubator and supporting it to ensure that these tier 1 and tier 2 levels are taken care of in regards to supplier development. We are also having community development programs. This year we are going to have a community development program that is looking at agriculture. We want to see how to help those agricultural enterprises to be able to meet the standards, to be able to meet the requirements. And this is also in an effort alongside the agricultural development program that the IOCs have been doing since 2018. And lastly but not least, we also hold quarterly supply development engagements. This is also a legal requirement, also a statutory requirement, that where we tell these tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 contractors about the opportunities available in the sector at all levels. So these are some of the interventions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I'm glad eventually you mentioned what you are doing as CNOC, as a licensee. The reason I'm saying I'm glad, you started by mentioning what you've asked the tier 1 contractors to do. And then eventually you said what you're doing. The reason I said I'm glad is because someone whispered in the corridor somewhere that, you see the problem, most of the focus and the policy focus and streamlining is on the licensees. But the licensees do nothing. Of course, that's a sweeping statement. The licensees also do some work. At least they issue the major contracts. But there's a whole conversation about, at a policy level, and I want to put this to Jeff and Elson as we conclude. Think about the question as I open up the audience. In concluding, whilst we have the policy makers here, we have the bankers here, and several other people, I'll ask you to make some concluding remarks on, from a policy perspective, what you think could really help the Tier 2 and Tier 3 contractors to create value and sustain it. And I think if Maggie can also chip in as we close, that would be very good. Because the early regulations really focused, truthfully, on the licensees and how they would work. As it turned out, the licensees have issued all the contracts and the real work on the ground to Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 subcontractors. And therefore, we need to think about where are the gaps in our policies or regulations, as it were. And it would be good for the people to listen, including from financing. I've seen some bankers here. Now, I want to open this to the audience. If anybody has a question or comment, I don't know how we'll do it, but we have microphones that are roving. I'll pick you in no particular order. The gentleman with the microphone, please. If you can direct your question to any of the panelists, it would help. If you can't, ask it in a generic way. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Start by introducing yourself, who you are, and where you work, and then you can ask your question or make your comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, everyone. This is a fantastic session. My name is Ferdinand, and I am a tax director. I am the tax director at Libra Advocates and Consultants. So obviously, my questions are going to be targeted at Margaret, and obviously, I will set a challenge for everyone else in this room. Margaret, thank you very much for differentiating between the fact that they are exemptions that are specific to the oil and gas sector from a taxation point of view, but then there are also general exemptions that are applicable to you as a taxpayer. I think it's important that we need to understand that just because exemptions are not specifically for the oil and gas sector, it doesn't mean that you as a taxpayer cannot take advantage of those general exemptions. Be that as it may, Margaret, we would still like to bring to your attention that one of the best ways of retaining value for Tier 3 and 4 contractors is if VAT deeming is extended further down that value chain. Because what's happening is there's this gap right now where the contractors are paying the subcontractors late. And as a result of that late payment, there is a VAT liability that has a 2% interest compounded per month on late payment. And the best solution, I believe, for that is to extend VAT deeming further down the value chain. My second question to Margaret will be, back in the day when oil and gas started, the URA put up a desk which was specific to the oil and gas sector and the industry sector for oil and gas, where questions and issues regarding exemptions, regarding compliance, regarding certain procedures were answered. Obviously, as time went on and the oil and gas industry went down, that desk and that office sort of dissipated a little bit. My question is there hope for that desk to come back? Because clearly you can see from the questions in this room, there is a need for URA to engage in this industry consistently. And finally, my challenge is to everyone else in this room. If we are going to be trying to lobby for legislation change, if we are going to be trying to ask the URA to give us some specific attention and advice, can we all please make a collective and concerted effort to make sure that tax compliance for this industry sector is second to none? Because that is the only way, I believe, that the URA and the government will be able to listen to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very well put, and I think very well heard by Margaret. I'll go to this gentleman. Please, can I limit the questions or comments to one in the interest of time?
Thank you very much. My name is Humphrey Asimwe from Multilines International. I had two. I'll just take very, very short time. It's about still on the taxation issue. Yes, it's true that when importing items, the East African Customs Management Act allows for zero import duty for machinery, whether it is for the oil and gas industry or for other industries. And then when it goes to the other taxes, that is VAT and withholding tax at importation, you use the Customs Procedure Code 475. But still, that only applies for the licensees. When it comes to tier 2, tier 3, okay, you are at pains to prove that whatever you're bringing in is for the oil and gas industry. Yet we understand the reason as to why that was done. I would refer you back to the time when we're building Karuma Dam. And Karuma Dam, a particular CPC was opened by URA for anything and anyone at whatever level was importing anything for Karuma. The truth of the matter is at that time, even if you're importing a chair and you would prove that it was to be used on the Karuma Dam project, it would go exempt because of that particular code. And there were reasons for that. So I think URA needs to be clear on some of these and be able to define properly so that it's not just the IOCs, but the rest, tier 2, tier 3, that are involved in this also do benefit. The other issue is about the Abdul, if you just...
Humphrey,
okay, thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to ask that, I think the issues around tax have been well put, and Margaret has heard. We'll organize a conference, I said, or a workshop on tax, but I don't want to turn this particular session into a crash course on tax. So if you have a question on tax, kindly defer it. So there's a lady there. Please take the microphone. I think it's Betty from the Petroleum Authority. That won't be about tax, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Abdul, and thank you to all the panelists. Mine is to the gentleman from Hima Cement. First of all, to congratulate you upon the new products, including the oil well cement. And my question is just to understand, have we acquired all the necessary certification to have this go out there? I know you talked about research, but it would be good to know whether it's really certified. But also in terms of production, what's the production capacity of this? And why I'm asking, would want to know what the capacity is vis-a-vis what the wells need. Then maybe lastly, we'll need to have an engagement to see how we can sell this out to the contractors, given that it's going to be needed in larger quantities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Betty. I'll ask the person with the microphone to now move to this side. Oh, you have a question, Ellie? I don't have an option on that. Please take the microphone to Ellie. And as you know, Ellie doesn't speak a lot, so it will be a short question or comment.
Thank you. It's just for you to give me an exemption to say something about tax. On the 4th of April, which is 9 days ago, the Chamber wrote a letter to the Executive Director of Petroleum Authority of Uganda, who is sitting just next to me, about the two issues that have been raised. The equipment that is imported by the third, second tier and downwards, and also the VAT exemption, and the challenge that BT has been able to handle very well. The thing is that the industry, as it stands, cannot really run. All these people, seated members of the chamber, cannot supply their services at all with the cash flow challenges, and therefore it means there's going to be absolute frustration for everybody. So while this is not going to be a seminar on that, the fact that we have everybody in the room who matters, and the fact that we have not yet received a letter from the verbal answer because he's probably working on it.
We can get a verbal answer here.
Yeah, no, I don't want to put him on the spot.
I'm the one in charge.
I want to put
No,
anybody on
I'm
the
joking.
spot.
Yeah.
But the banks are having a challenge. The insurance companies are having a challenge on issuing the bond. The people who win the contracts cannot. I know, for example, one of the people in the audience now is supposed to look for $4 million to pay for this VAT. Where would you find that on top of looking for the money to buy and bring the equipment? And yet, if it was Total, it would not have to look for $4 million. But for you and me, you have to look for $4 million. Where would you, in this, do you think that Stanbic MD will give me $4 million if I walk in her office tomorrow?
She will.
It's not possible.
And I've spoken on your behalf. Won't you? No, thank you very much, Ellie. I think there's a big issue there around tax. I just want to take 2 more questions, then I'll decide what to do next. I was told when you have the microphone, you call the shots. But I didn't pick anyone from my left. That doesn't look to... Oh, there's a gentleman here, please. I take the microphone to him. And Mr. Rubondo, if you'd want to make a comment or verbally acknowledge receipt of the Chamber's letter, you'll be free, but you are not on the spot.
I think my name is Maurice from Minet Insurance. You had ably the issue of risk. I think tax is a big issue, much as we will have to talk about it probably later. Insurance has 18% VAT. There's a tax exemption for the main, the Total, Sinok, but Tier 2, Tier 3, you will have to pay the 18%. Insurance is cash before cover can commence, so even issues of credit are going to be a challenge. The premium has to be paid before cover commences. That's the insurance law as it is in this country. So I think we need to synchronize all these things because then we'll start having gaps and bottlenecks which need to be managed before we can say that things are smooth and everybody is now able to perform in terms of these contractual requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the Democrat or dictator in me is telling me that there's a lot of interest in this subject. So I'm going to pivot towards concluding this session by requesting Mr. Rubondo to make a comment if he wants. I've not dictated to him, but while he does, I'll still can someone take the microphone to Mr. Rubondo? This is my only chance to instruct the regulator. For the last 14 years, I've taken instructions from him. So I have a chance to instruct him now. Welcome, Mr. Rubondo. Is it on? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it is on. Thank you very much, moderator. I trust that you are using your single opportunity to instruct the regulator wisely and sustainably. In the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, we have a process where the receipt of letters is acknowledged within 30 minutes of their arrival. So I am sure the people who sent the letter received an acknowledgement of receipt, so they know that this letter is sitting in the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. We are, first of all, very happy that we have such a working relationship, that we share our challenges kind of openly and freely. And Petroleum Authority of Uganda will be extremely excited we'll be very happy to address or solve a challenge that is in between our Ugandan companies benefiting or participating in the oil and gas sector. I think the desire of the authority in the Ugandan companies participating and benefiting from the sector is very well known. As you are aware, the issue at hand is about taxation, and there is an authority in this country that actually deals with taxation. So as soon as we got the letter, That authority is also a very strong, is in partnership with the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. We actually have an MOU with the Uganda Revenue Authority. So we've shared it with them. They have looked at the issue, and the two institutions are considering what is at play. As you are aware, the business that the second and third tier contractors do is not restricted to oil and gas. And so the tax authority is also interested in making sure that in taking a decision on that matter, they do not open any leakages to other aspects that are not oil and gas. We think that there are opportunities for providing either ring fencing or firewalls between the intended objective, and if that is considered well and successfully, the letter should be responded to without any problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for Mr. Rubondo, at least for acknowledging receipt of the letter to the entire audience. I think we've run out of time. Our last comments will come from Maggie because majority of the questions have been focused on tax. But just before Maggie makes a comment, I just want to give assurance to the audience. We've had opportunity as Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum to work with the Petroleum Authority. We actually have a process. We're in the process of signing an MOU for partnership and engaging on these matters. So what Mr. Rubondo is saying is exactly true. But my company, True North, has also been a beneficiary of the relationship between URA and the Petroleum Authority. We registered a joint venture company, and we couldn't get past the URA requirements to register on with the Petroleum Authority. Just one email to clarify to URA, were given all the permissions required. We got the VAT registration, we got the TIN, because there are hurdles that you need to go through. So there are specific provisions or exceptions being made for players in the oil and gas industry because the Petroleum Authority has discussed them with the URA. So I have a lot of faith that this conversation will happen. Over to you, Maggie, before we close. Oh, there was a question for, maybe Marvin can respond to the question from Betty, and then I'll go to Maggie.
All right. Thank you, Betty. They're back. Thank you. All right. Thank you for your question. Just to basically give you the satisfaction.
Try and keep the response brief, Marvin.
Yes.
I'm under pressure for time.
Okay. Hima Cement has a particular production plant called the Namave Blending Station that is basically used for producing specialized products. We are using it currently to produce Minesem that is used in the mining industry. And this same production plant is going to be used to produce the oil well cement that I've talked about. We have a production capacity of over 300,000 tons annually. And currently, the demand we have, at least from one of the biggest subcontractors, is about 3,500 tons for the first 6 months. So you can clearly see that we have the capacity to provide that oil well cement. The certification will be out. We are at the tail end, so it will be out in the next 3 months. I hope I've answered your question.
Would that be local or international certification?
Local.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maggie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Abdul. Probably through this forum, I'm requesting that we can have another session organized by the Uganda Chamber of Mines on issues of taxation, because right now we are discussing issues of adding value, but I'm seeing that there is actually a high risk of eroding the value through non-tax compliance. I'm afraid. So for me, I would want to protect the contract through erosion. And if I'm to go through what I had actually planned, I think we would have to sleep here. But just to answer the question.
The workshop will happen. That's for
sure.
certain. Everybody who matters in the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum is here.
Yeah, sure.
And we've heard. So that will certainly happen.
Okay.
If I was in the audience, I would clap for the chamber for that.
Okay, just to answer the questions briefly, retention of value for deeming for third, fourth, probably fifth, like as Mr. Rubonda has said, this is a policy issue that is being actually analyzed. It is being taken up. The desk for oil and gas, yeah, with effect from August 2020, with effect from August 2019, we have now a division, a petroleum division where I sit, which handles upstream issues, the upstream oil and gas sector issues, the midstream, and then the mining. So on third floor, instead of going to that desk which was removed, you can just come to us and we shall handle any issues. Yeah. Importance of items, machinery, and okay, yes, sure. The East African Community Customer Management Act, the fifth schedule recognizes the licensee, which is an issue. Yes, it has been scoped, and this is the reason why that general provision in respect to that fifth schedule recognizes the licensee. But when it comes to other players, there will be VAT, although it will be deferred. Then the withholding tax only if you are on the exemption list. Yeah. So also that one is being looked at because we have recognized that if contractors, the third, the fourth, are actually exclusive to the oil and gas, sector, yeah, we could probably look through the policy issues and try to also see that they also benefit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hand clap for Maggie, especially for offering to come here and present when we organize the workshop on tax. This is a very interesting conversation, but I've run out of time. As I told you initially, the next session is being run by Jimmy, and we still have an appraisal that never happened while we're still working together, so I don't want it to be recalled. But just to conclude the session, allow me just to share some very quick takeaways and a point which I know that was really itching Jeff to share around at a policy level. And this is, I think he would have been looking at Mr. Rubondo while making this point. So I'll do it for him. So there's a conversation about how mutually beneficial are the contracts when they are drafted or shared. So there's a question mark whether there's a line of sight at a policy level to check whether this contract being issued to a tier 2 or 3 company is really mutually beneficial, or it won't just be participation for the tier 2 or 3 company, but in the long term, they can never really create value. Now, that means looking at all the aspects that I summarized that they talked about, the payment terms, the duration of the contract. Very importantly, the scope of the work itself, whether it allows the tier 2 or 3 licensee to create the capacity required in a sustainable way. But there's been some very good insights. I think the point that Elson raised about distinctions without differences was really about policy. And that is what drifted into the detailed conversation about deemed VAT and the entire tax regime for the industry. And on a pleasant note, to say to the audience that some of the sticky issues that were raised here had already been raised by the chamber through to the Petroleum Authority, and the Petroleum Authority had already started the discussion with the Uganda Revenue Authority. I have a reason to feel that we're well covered, but this conversation has to continue. So hopefully you will all attend the workshop on tax. Thank you very much. Put a round of applause to all our panelists. Thank you very much. Some of you, I didn't come back to you, but it's been a great pleasure. I'll not ask the audience to put their hands together for the moderator. Thank you.
Abdul, I'll ask the audience to do that for you. Please, let's give the moderator a round of applause for some very insightful leadership. Okay, before I start, if you lost your AirPods, or should I say AirPod, because it's one. So for you to claim them, you have to come with the second one. We test. If they pair, then I will know that it's yours. If not, stay where you are. Here they are, though. If this is yours, please see me. The one thing that I've noticed over these 2 days is there will never be enough time to finish these conversations. I listened to everybody's presentations yesterday. Everybody was trying very hard to keep time. And the truth of the matter is 2 days will not be enough to disseminate all this information. That's for sure. We do have a cocktail at the end of today. That cocktail, apart from the fact that cocktails do what cocktails do, loosen you up, is to allow you to network. So, you have seen everybody who has talked, if you have questions, but let's not disturb Margaret for today. Let's wait until you go to the third floor of URA. Don't disturb her with taxes when she's having her cocktails. First, leave her for now. But on a real though, the cocktail is for you to network, so please stay behind and enjoy it. A quick reminder that Bar Aviation is going to do our raffle here before we do say bye. And remember that raffle ticket is for a return trip for 2 full board accommodation to Mahogany Springs, which is in Chihihi. And if you haven't put in your business card, it's right at the entrance of this Victoria Hall. Make sure you do that. Now we go to our final session, which is about Eacop. And as you know, the pipeline has awarded a number of contracts for different work packages in that construction. The Tier 1 contractors will present their details of their work packages, and then the audiences can ask questions. To moderate this session, which I know very many of you are interested in, is a man who needs no introduction. You've probably heard about him already. 27-year career in the oil and gas sector, both upstream and downstream. He headed Tallow Business during the transition of the exploration and appraisal phase. He has previously worked in Shell. He was a senior regional advisor in sub-Saharan Africa. He has worked in Shell companies in Uganda, Ghana, South Africa, Netherlands, and the UK. His academic credentials, I will not get into that because we don't have the time. There are too many. He is currently Chairman of the Board of Directors, DFCU Bank, and the CEO of Zoramu Consulting Group. Please help me put your hands together for Mr. Jimmy Mugerwa. He will introduce his panel and then take us through the Eacop conversation. Thank you.
Is everybody still alive? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say from the onset that Abdul has done a great job. One is in pre-selling this discussion, but the other one is to see that the audience is still this full, despite it being the last session. So thank you very much, the chambers, for putting together such a wonderful workshop that everybody can still stay awake when it is the end of the day. But I am sure the reason you are here is because of the topic. Now, the topic is probably one we've spoken about the least. what we are going to, because most of the time has been around Tilenga, has been about the upstream, and has been about taxes, but the next conversation is around the pipeline. We've had and seen so many conversations around the upstream, but I've not had a discussion around the tier 1 contractors for the pipeline. And just to, if you're not awake, just to keep you awake, let me put some numbers in perspective for you. This project is probably the one project that is going to touch more people than all the other projects which are involved. Because if you think about the CPF or the upstream area, that will be a closed area. And you probably won't get a chance to see what's happening because it will be a very restricted area. But the pipeline traverses 10 districts across Uganda, 10 districts across Uganda, 24 districts in Tanzania. So, everybody along that route will have a chance to participate in the project. As you've heard, the project is 1,500 kilometers, almost. The project will be, there will be about 220,000 barrels a day. Again, to put it in perspective for you, Uganda today, all the cars and generators and everything consumes about 40,000 barrels a day. So that pipeline will be carrying 4 times the amount of fuel we consume in a day. Again, to put it in perspective for you, I think the numbers written are a $3.5 billion project today, but I am sure if you talk to the project guys, it's probably a $5 billion project. So that's how big it is. And talking about value retention, it is a very technical project. There's a lot of steel, there are a lot of pipes, there are a lot of pumps, so probably a lot of that will stay abroad. But there's value retention. I want to think, if we succeed in keeping 30% of that $5 billion, that is still $1.5 billion, which can be kept in country. But if you look at the national content plans, you've got the labor commitments, because they're going to employ a lot of people. You've got the technology transfer and capacity development, because we'll need a lot of welders. You've got the goods and services, because our mothers and sisters and brothers who are along the pipeline need to sell cabbages and tomatoes. Leave alone all the small lodges that will be along the pipeline route. And it also got tech services. We hope by the time the pipeline guys, contractors leave the country, they will have done a bit of that technology transfer. So if there is a project where Ugandan contractors need to think about the joint ventures, this is the one big project. But probably let me leave that to the guys who are going to share with us what the scope is, which contracts have they awarded, which contracts are they about to award, when does the pipeline start, and they have a presentation. It's not going to be a session of, a chat, but at the end, we'll have a chance for you people to ask. But before I start, I'd like to recognize that this project, this session has been sponsored by Wally and ICS, and they do have a small presentation of about a minute before I invite the presenters. So, the Wally team, where are the Wally teams? Could you just stand up and we recognize you? Because thank you very much for sponsoring the project.
Built on a solid professional engineering foundation gained from several projects in various parts of Africa, today we are a leader in Uganda's engineering and infrastructure sector, applying global solutions in the delivery of local projects that are sustainable, reliable, effective, and built on a solid professional engineering foundation gained from several projects in various parts of Africa. Today, we are a leader in Uganda's engineering and infrastructure sector, applying global solutions in the delivery of local projects that are sustainable, reliable, effective, and grounded to quality. We have gained this through high-profile consultants assignments in sectors such as oil and gas, transportation, built environment, power and renewable energy, water, environmental and social considerations. With strategic partnerships, we are building a close network of both local and international associate companies. We are engineering the Ugandan future. ICS, delivering sustainable and appropriate local solutions with global expertise.
We are born to change, to learn, to adapt, to grow.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Over the years, we've watched our company grow and change as we combine the brightest minds with the latest technology to help create the best solutions. But we're still finding ways to improve, to work closer to our customers and offer more than ever before. More expertise, more value, more synergy, and more innovation in the face of the energy transition. Because the world is changing, and so are we. Welcome to our world. Welcome to Worley.
Thank you. Please put your hands together for the session sponsors. Thank you very much. To kick us off, and I would like to invite all the panelists onto the podium. I'd like to invite the director in the Directorate of Petroleum, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, our colleague Hani Malinga, who we've been with in the trenches for many years. Mr. Malinga is a trained professional geophysicist with 27 years in the petroleum production and development sector. He holds a Master of Science in Exploration Geophysics and a Bachelor of Science in Physics from the University of Makerere, and is a member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers. Mr. Hani Malinga is here to represent the PS, who is unable to attend, Engineer Irene Batebe. Please put your hand together welcoming Hani Malinga. The next person I would like to introduce is David Bishop. David Bishop is a qualified construction engineer, a project manager with over 20 years of experience in oil and gas. He's also been in education as a senior lecturer in the universities in the UK and has headed the UK vocational training colleges. He started here in Uganda in local content and national content, whatever we called it, in the day in Talo Oil. I should also say that I'm proud to say that I worked with him. And he was based here for 3 years and before moving to Kenya. Welcome, David. While David is taking the podium, I should also note that there are a lot of Talo people who've been on the podium before, and I'm so proud of them. I saw Idrissa here in the morning, I saw Abdul, I saw Eli here. So there are so many ex-Talo colleagues, and I'm so proud of you. Don't hold me to that, though. The next person is Olivia Fonolo. Olivia has 20 years in oil and gas construction projects worldwide in both pipeline, surface facilities in Nigeria, Canada, Saudi Arabia, UK. I think I should stop there and say the whole world. He has a background in procurement, construction, project management, strategy, and he is now the local content manager for Eacop. Welcome, Olivier. The next person to the podium is Mr. Dong Yushang. Mr. Dong Yushang joined CPP in 2019 for the GTL oil storage tank projects in Mozambique, working on market development and local content management, now serving Eacop's pipeline construction project and assisting in the development and implementation of the national content. Welcome. The next person is Festo Kasule, with over 11 years of experience. He's an electrical engineer and has played a key role in the groundbreaking technologies in Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi. He currently works with Schneider Electric here in Uganda, and maybe he'll tell us what Schneider does, but he's here as the contracts account manager. Welcome, Festo. And then the next person is Madame Anyang. At least our panel has a lady, which is good. Madame Anyang, who is a lawyer by training from the UK and Uganda. She's the national and local content manager at Bolloré Logistics. She previously worked as the legal manager at Total Energies, and previously was also a legal manager with Simba Group. She holds a Master's of Laws in Commercial and Corporate from the University of Dundee, and also a Bachelor's from Makerere University. I've run out of chairs, and I still have another person. Caroline Tayebwa. Is Caroline here? Are you joining the panel now, or you'll come later? Okay, she'll come later. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together welcoming these people. But before we go into the formal presentation, let me give you a minute each, other than Mr. Hani Malinga, well, after Mr. Hani Malinga has made his intro, to tell us what your own organization does, because it's pretty confusing.
So our organization on the Eacop side is to supervise and manage all the main contractors working within Eacop. So our target as national and local content is to make sure that we achieve and exceed, I would say, our commitments for this project.
Thank you. David?
Is that working? Yes. Hi, what does Whirly do? Whirly on this project is the EPCMC. That stands for Engineering, Procurement, Construction Management, and Commissioning, Level 1, Tier 1 Contractor, as you've heard. What we do is we integrate our expertise with that of Eacop to keep a managerial oversight of all the Level 1 contractors. We've also done a lot of the engineering on the pipeline from as far back as 2014. We deal with procurement of the long lead items, some of the things that Jimmy was talking about, you know, the pipes, the export pumps, the loading arms, the marine terminal, etc. Our job mainly, though, is to assist the Eacop team in keeping a managerial oversight of the Level 1, Tier 1 contractors to make sure that they're complying with specification, complying with budget and schedule, but also complying with things like environmental protection, social considerations, labor management considerations, procurement considerations, and also making sure they're keeping up with their local content commitments or national content commitments, depending where they are.
Thank you, David. Festus?
Am I on? All right. Schneider Electric is a leading supplier in digital solutions for sustainability and efficiency. For the Eacop, we are going to be doing the EITS scope, which is electrical, instrumentation and control, telecommunication, and cybersecurity. Hope that explains.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes.
Madam?
Good evening to everybody. This is Bolloré Transport and Logistics, Uganda Limited. We are the largest freight forwarding company in Africa and in Uganda particularly. So we are the contractor for Eacop, and that is what our scope is going to be.
Thank you, Winnie.
Good afternoon. I come from China Petroleum Pipeline Engineering Company Limited, abbreviated as CPP. We are the contractor of pipeline construction. And this is our first project in Uganda. Then I hope we can do an excellent job here and get as many as possible local entities and individuals involved in the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dong. So on the podium, we have most of the tier 1 contractors as far as the pipeline is concerned. Join me in welcoming the director, who is the policy maker, to give us his opening remarks.
Yeah, thank you. Are you a doctor? But we can still give you. Jim Gerwa, for that introduction. My fellow panelists, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm standing in for my PS, Madam Irene Bateve. Yeah, I wanted to see whether you are awake. She had wished to be with us here, but due to other duties, she has sent me in. I personally, I wanted to be here since yesterday, but unfortunately over the weekend, I lost one of my mentors up country, so we buried her yesterday, so I missed. So this morning I was tired, but I was forced to come here. I hope I'll do the duty which they have told me to do. People have talked about good presentations since yesterday, and even the word national versus local. So since the topic is policy provision for local, now I'm baptizing it to be national content for the Eacop project. For the interest of time, I'll just say all protocol observed, so the list is big. It's my pleasure to be part of the 8th Annual Oil and Gas Convention organized by our partners, Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, under the captive theme, maximizing national content and value retention. Why we say partners, we have already an MOU with the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum as far as to do this type of promotion is concerned. I'm honored to be speaking at the 7th session, which is speaking to the Eacop opportunity, and more specifically, the policy provisions for national content in the Eacop project. The Eacop project consists of several components, but is largely aimed at constructing 1,443 kilometer long pipeline. Other people talk of 1,445. The other additional 2 is within the ocean. So it should not confuse. We hear 1,443. Some people talk of 1,445. But the truth is, land is 1,443. It is a heated crude oil pipeline, which starts from Kabale in Hima, in Uganda, to Tanga in Tanzania. In Uganda, it will cover a distance of 296 kilometers. The MC has already talked of 10 districts. I want to add that 25 sub-counties. In Tanzania, the distance will be 1,147 through 8 regions and 24 districts. Ladies and gentlemen, this project was actualized by the intergovernmental agreement which the 2 governments, that is Uganda and the United Republic of Tanzania, signed in May 2017. It's now being implemented through the host government agreements, because the 2 countries have HGS, the tariff and transport agreement, and the shareholder agreements, which were conducted or concluded in April 2021 after a lot of negotiation. It has not been easy, but it was concluded. The governments of Uganda and the United Republic of Tanzania subsequently enacted enabling legislation to ensure lawful implementation of projects. When one of our engagement with honorable members of parliament, as far as the Eacop Act was concerned, they were asking us, where is the policy? Because in most cases, we first start with policy before we go to the laws. So we told them that by virtue that we have IGA and later HGA, those ones act as a policy direction, because policy is to tell you what do you plan to do. The conclusion of the required agreements and enactment of enabling legislation paved the way for announcement of the final investment decision, which was done on 1st February 2022. And this one has ushered in a lot of things. And someone told me that the conference has been well attended. It is more focused because of, I think, the FID. On the national content in the Eacop, ladies and gentlemen, the state of Uganda and the United Republic of Tanzania recognize the importance of national content in the Eacop project and agreed to address it in an integrated manner that takes into account the laws of the two countries, at the same time enables value retention by businesses and employees in the two countries. The IGA sets out some of the silent principles to guide national content for the project, and these are to be stipulated in the national content plans, which the moderator has already talked about, that the project is to develop. It was also agreed that national content shall be guided by IGA, state party legislation, and HGA. In light of the above, the Eacop Act 2021 confirms that the applicable regime for national content for the Eacop is the Eacop Act and other relevant Ugandan laws. The national content requirements are elaborated in Part 8 of the Eacop Special Provision Act 2021. For those ones who have seen the copies, it is Part 8. For those ones who have not seen, please make an effort to understand. That part has quite a list of requirements. There is national content plan, national content requirements, registration on a national supplier database, selection of contractors during construction phase, award of contracts, joint ventures with local partners. I think some of the issues came up when the previous session was handling the issue of taxes. So there's a lot of things, so we have to look. For those ones who have not seen, you should be able to get a copy and read it. The following are some of the key principles of the national content in the Eacop. 1, priority for Ugandan and Tanzanian goods and services during procurement. So when we are dealing with procurement, we have to make sure that Ugandans or Tanzanian goods are taken into consideration. Reserved contracts for certain goods and services to be provided by Ugandan and Tanzanian companies, registered entities, and citizens. C, required quality, health, safety, environmental, technical, and other standards for goods and services to be procured. So as we take this forward, we are working with other entities to make sure that standards are in place. Government is working, or the ministry is working hand in hand with other entities, including the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, to make sure that the standards are in place. Supplier development for Ugandan and Tanzanian companies, registered entities and citizens, plan for employment and training. I've heard my colleagues here talking. Training of Ugandan and Tanzanian citizens, implementation of the plan for recruitment and training of Ugandan and Tanzanian citizens, and the last one is support to Uganda and Tanzanian training institutions. So until we have this in place and they are fully followed, it might be very hard to really actualize the national content. In recognizing the cross-border and integrated nature of the Eacop, the HGA required the project company to develop a national content plan for the construction and operation phase in accordance with the cross-border nature of the project, where all the relevant cross-border issues are to be identified. The national content plans are to be approved by the governments, and the aspects to be included therein are set in the HGA. I'm aware that the Petroleum Authority of Uganda and the regulator in Tanzania, that's EWORA, are working closely with the Eacop company to ensure development and approval of acceptable national content plan. The HGA also provides that where Ugandan companies provide goods and services in Tanzania, are recruited and trained in Tanzania, or are recipients of technology transfer in Tanzania, each in relation to the Eacop project and the conduct of the project activities, such goods and services, recruitment, training, or technology transfer shall be considered as part of the project company's contribution to national content in the Uganda, and the project company shall report to the state on these activities as part of its report on the national content matters. So it's quite loaded. We have people who are talking of transfer of technology already here. So whatever you are doing, we have to make sure that all that information, those ones who are benefited, have been captured. The same applies with Tanzanians provided goods or services, or are employed or trained in Uganda. The provisions above provide an incentive for the Eacop project to procure goods and or services from joint ventures between Ugandan and Tanzanian companies, as this counts to the national content contribution in both states. Ugandan and Tanzanian companies should therefore be encouraged to enter into JVs to leverage on the favorable regime provided under the Eacop project. I hope we have participants from the Tanzanian side so that they hear what we are saying this side. Ladies and gentlemen, the Eacop project is very key to the commercialization of Uganda's oil and gas resources. It is also vital in maximizing the participation of Ugandans in the sector. The policy provisions for the national content in this project were carefully crafted to ensure that local participation or national participation is maximized, including by our people having the opportunity to be employed or do business on the project in the United Republic of Tanzania. I encourage the implementers of the Eacop project to adhere to the local or national content regime in place and the regulators to ensure compliance. So I heard my mentors saying that there are issues which they are already discussing. I know Power is already engaging EWORA. I don't know at what level you'll engage PURA, because it's also regulated their side. I heard you were talking about MOU with the URA. Then other MOUs might come along the way, because there are a lot of activities which are related to these activities. In conclusion, the government of Uganda is committed in facilitating and encouraging significant national content in its oil and gas industry, including on the Eacop, for the benefit of Ugandan economy and the society at large. With all that said, I want to thank you for the audience, for God and my country.
Thank you, Mr. Director Hani Malinga. I think the points he emphasized, which we really need to remember, is that it's a multi-jurisdiction project, which means the laws of Uganda, the laws of Tanzania apply. But they've done some good work for us to ensure that there's an enabling legislation. The other thing which I think is a key point that we should take away is the clarity of the importance around value creation on national content. The only thing which I seem to be struggling with, even as people are speaking on the podium and introducing themselves, and I'm introducing them, some of them call themselves local content, others call themselves national content. What is the real word? So we maybe we'll have another session with the chamber and decide, do we do what the Nigerians have done and called it Nigerian content? So that we are absolutely clear that we're not talking about local, but we're talking about Ugandan content. Or do we even move it to Ugandan participation? Because it's an important one. There are a lot of people here in the audience, and especially the foreigners, who are confused about what is a Ugandan company as far as the act is concerned. And I think my friends, the lawyers in the room, Apollo Makuvia or Ellison, should really try and guide, Nicholas here, you should try and guide the country around this point. Because people are confused around this thing around national content. But without much further ado, I want to invite Mr. Olivier Fanule, the local or national content manager of Eacop. Please give him a round of applause. Could we have the presentation, please?
Thank you, Jimmy. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm so used to say habari za asubuhi. Allow me to say today muli mutia basebo ne banyabo. Thank you. So allow me also to excuse our project director, Emmanuel Blarez. He could not join us today, he could not make it. So I will present briefly the project on his behalf. And after, I will talk about our national content objective, principles, and I introduce also our main contractors. And thank you, Jimmy, about, he has been referring about local content and national content. So covering both sides from Eacop, for us, it helps us to differentiate when we talk about Tanzania and Uganda. So actually, we find it quite useful because once we talk about national content, everybody knows that we talk about Uganda. So we find it quite useful on our Eacop side. So today, yes, I have to deal with this one, I guess. I guess it's green. Yeah. So we started the Eacop project a long time ago. Actually, I think it was even in 2016. It was a long journey for us. So we have been through host government agreement in both countries, enabling legislation, and then more recently, we could finally pronounce our FID early February. And this allows us, in the end, to create Eacop. So you might tell me, yeah, we know you are Eacop already since a long time, but for us it's a huge change because UNOC and CNOOC are now within our team. So for us, we've changed computer, we've changed email address, and Eacop and CNOOC are also part of our team. My management is not only Total, today is also JB that you all know, who is from UNOC. And I'm glad also that he has joined the project. So it's a whole new different animal, allow me to say. So the scope of work, I'll just go briefly. So it's 296 kilometers of pipeline plus 95 kilometers of feeder line. And yes, it's a 24-inch buried pipeline and insulated. We'll do the insulation in Tanzania. And we have also 29 block valve stations to build on the side of Uganda. So this is describing the pipeline construction sequences that maybe CPP will detail later on. So it's about survey, laying the pipe, welding, digging, doing the inspection, lowering, backfilling, hydro testing, and then proceeding with the site restoration. This one is the project schedule. So as you can imagine, we have been updating this schedule several times. So now we are due to start the work. We have been starting to award some of our main contracts. First one was EPCM, so Worley for engineering, MLC, so logistics with Bolloré, and EITS, electrical instrumentation with Snef Schneider. Actually, on the side of Uganda, those are the 3 contracts that we have awarded yet. And later on, we'll award CPP with pipeline and AGI. Today they work under what we call CLOA, is a conditional letter of award, so that they can start to prepare themselves, prepare their procedure, prepare their team, and to get ready. Yes, this is our vision, but if there is something to remember, and that's something that we have been hammering on since long time, our three main pillars are employment and training first, goods and services second, and three, capacity building and technology transfer. This is the manpower histogram on the side of Uganda. So as you can see, most of the work, most of the employment is going to take place in 2023. Why is that? It's because we are going first to buy the pipe, to bring it in country. We'll do the installation on the side of Tanzania, and then we'll have to install it. So that's only when we will install the pipe, so making the trench and bury the pipe, that we'll have to employ most of the people. And as you can see with the gray and yellow, most of it is going through CPP, who will have to install the pipeline. And during the peak, we'll be reaching almost 1,600 people here in Uganda. As you can see, this is a pie chart summarizing for the employment within each discipline, the portion for each of them. So in terms of man hours, we'll reach 5,600,000, up to 1,600 people, as I said earlier, and lots of training also commitments. Here below you see a small table. So as per the host government agreement, we are due to employ nationals at a level of 20%, and 30% for 20 for management, 30 technical, and 95 for other. And just below you see those are the commitments coming from our main contractors when we merge all of them. As you can see, we are much above the minimum commitment, and this is our target. So this is what we want to achieve. 58% of management, 72% of technical, and 100% for, let's say, non-skills or labor personnel. This represents the skill sets that we'll need for this project within our main contractors. Similarly, this is a cloud of all the goods and services that this contractor are needing during the execution of the project. Within each and every contracts that they do have, we have embedded the condition of what we call reserve contract from the HGA within their contract. All these goods and services are for Ugandans only. And we'll make sure, we'll monitor closely with them that this is being respected. Also in terms of capacity building, we've collected lots of commitment from them. And when we merge them all, you see these figures for the train the trainer. So train the trainer, sometimes people are asking us what it is all about. So it is about doing training to the teachers at universities. So those are the commitments that we got on the side of Uganda, 1,600 hours. We'll also be part of the Industry Enhancement Center, for which TEP Uganda is a bit more advanced than us, so I think we'll get experience from them, but we also commit to develop this one. We'll do also quarterly forum. We'll do training for communities. We'll do internship. We do provide also support to local institutions. And some of our main contractors, once the work will be done, they propose to release their own facilities, tools to the local communities. So all this is embedded into the contract, and we'll make sure that it is going to happen. As Eacop, we also need some small services, because we all have our office also. So we'll need some HR, office administration, communication, logistic, HSC, land and social, and some IT services. So we have started already to publish this through EOI advertising, and we'll continue to do so. So this is for Eacop, meaning ourselves, our office. This is in the short term, and this is more in the long term, let's say, or all along the execution of the project for our affiliate. I must precise that all the presentations that we show today, including the one of our main contractors, will be on our website in the next few days on eacop.com. So this to prevent you from taking pictures. You have access to the same. So we started to engage already here in Uganda. So that was back in 23 of November last year. Unfortunately, there was the bombing incident, if you remember, just a few days before. So we had to cancel our flights for most of the team. So we had to present half from Tanzania, the other half here in Uganda. We had a good exposure, but it was more online and through TV, YouTube, and other channels. And now something important on which I would like to attract your attention. In Tanzania, we have been listening very much to the expectation, same as in Uganda, I must say. But since we were a bit more advanced in Tanzania, people were asking to go all along the regions and districts. And we have been doing this exercise. So we have been following the right-of-way for 2 weeks. We did 2,500 kilometers, and we visited all the districts and regions together with our main contractors. And we found that this was very good because people, yes, outside they are having, on the field, they have expectations. It's not only about doing a forum here to satisfy the biggest contractors, but there are lots of people also close to the field that have expectations. We find lots of smaller companies that have services to provide for security, transportation, catering, food, etc. And actually, we found it quite useful. Also something that we would not expect. People came with rice, cooking oil, vegetables. And so at first we were wondering what we would do with them, to be honest. And then we did our presentation together with the main contractors. And we could see that there was lots of interactions. So people were saying, okay, how can I join your good project? Then catering companies were in the same room. And they said, look, I can take care of you. And after people were saying, oh, but what about the financing? And bank were with us. And they raised their hand and they said, I will take care of the financing. So as we say in my country, we did a bit of mayonnaise, and all the tier 1, 2, 3 were all together, and they started to discuss. And this was quite good. So from this good experience we had in Tanzania, now we want to reproduce the same here in Uganda. That's why from the 16th of May to 26th of May, we are going through all these regions that you see on the screen. And I must admit I'm not familiar with them, but I'll be there. And we are already engaging with our friends from PAU, also with UNOC, and also private sector. And we want all to be there to answer to the expectations and make sure we can make the bridge, we can make the link between the different tier 1, 2, 3, and to make sure that we can create the good connection so that nobody is left out. And also, as you can see in the below picture, I'm quite sure you cannot even guess who is contractor, who is the regulator, who is the partner, who is the stakeholder. We were all of us for 2 weeks together, and so it was all good also to create a nice team building. Now we also managed to build trust and confidence between all parties. So earlier it was said from Jimmy, okay, but what you guys are doing? So ourselves, we are Eacop, together with UNOC, so we are the bar on the top. And we are going to follow and manage all the main contractors which you see below. So today you have Worley, CPP, Bolloré and Schneider, they are here. And themselves, they will have to subcontract to main subcontractors who eventually will subcontract to other smaller contractors. So this is the scheme, and this is what we call our subcontracting cascade. Today, our website is not very user-friendly, and we are going to update it so that it looks like this. And when you will reach eacop.com after a few days from now, you will be able to click on every and each of the main contractors. You will find the details of each and every of them, email address, phone numbers, and everything, plus all the advertising and EOIs which will fall under their respective scope of work. So those are some key words. This is how we are. This is who we are as Eacop. Again, we like to listen to expectations because this is also giving us an indication of what people expect from us. We are fully transparent. We are compliant. Yeah, safety is also a DNA within Total, and also within Eacop. So we want to build trust and confidence again. We have very good relationship with our stakeholders, so CNUC, UNOC. We start to engage a bit more now with PAU as well. Probably we have to engage more with PSFU as well and other private sector association. We are very passionate about national content. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much for listening to me. Mwebale nnyo, Katonda abawe omukisa, and Uganda oye.
Well done, Olivier. At that rate, we will ensure that you deliver on those national content commitments. Two things I picked up. One was the schedule. You probably noticed that they deliver at the end of 2025. And I think the audience will get a chance to ask. But with everything that is happening, with all the headwinds that we see, with all Ukraine and Russia, are we still on target? And if we're not on target, what is the new date? The good thing is Philippe has also walked in, so when we get to the Q&A, we might just ask him to join in. But I think that the point to take away, and it's a point for all the contractors and even PAU, is this project is going to be about managing expectations. I think since we started this project in 2010, we have created so much expectations and keep rising. We keep turning the dial, and it's going up and up and up. And there's some reality. So at a certain point, we do need to share those realities. But let's get that into the real discussions. Can I ask the gentleman from CPP, Mr. Dong, please?
Okay, distinguished participants, it gives me great pleasure to be here to present my company and show the potential opportunities of the project to you all. I come from China Petroleum Pipeline Engineering Company Limited. We are the contractor of the Eacop pipeline construction. Since the company's establishment in 1973, we have built hundreds of oil and gas transportation facilities around the world. However, this is the first project in Uganda. Therefore, we will endeavor to abide by the national content regulations and promote local development. The pipeline starts from Tilanga to the border between Uganda and Tanzania. It is 390 kilometers approximately long, and with 24 inches pipe diameter, 2 pump stations, 4 main camps and pipe yards, as well as mainline block valve and electric heat treating stations. It has a total construction period of 24 months and a commissioning period of 3 months. Here's the schedule for the main activities. It is estimated that the contract effective date will fall on July 1st this year, and many activities such as management, project control, administration, procurement, and construction engineering will start after that date, and the other construction-related activities will carried out successively. We do need local talent to support our work. Here is the histogram shows the number of local people that we are planning to employ locally. And the horizontal axis indicates the time, while the vertical axis indicates the number. The blue bars represent the local staff number for pipeline activities, while the orange bars represent that of above ground installation activities. With regard to the local employment, we have set up a process And after our recruitment plan gets approved, we will advertise the job vacancies in the newspapers in the near future. And in addition, all kinds of trainings will be conducted to help develop the employees' skills. And the figures in the histogram are estimated based on our plan, but we certainly recruit as many as possible to join our team. The ratio of local people in our team will be increased year by year. According to the organization, a variety of positions have been reserved to the local people, including but not limited to worker, technical engineer, craftsman, steel bender, helper, coordinator, safety guards, and drivers, etc. What's more, we will try to find local vendors and suppliers in the categories such as foods and beverages, home accommodation, security service, equipment hire, civil work, transportation, and fuel supply, and so on. As the project gets started, we will advertise the EOI and initiate the call for tender process. All the competent local entities are entitled to participate in the bidding. From advertising the EOI to call for tender to sign contract, it may last for about 10 weeks. However, the duration will be adjusted according to the particularities of the goods, services, and works. The principles of openness, fairness, and transparency will be applied throughout the process. We haven't found any local partners till now, but we sincerely welcome all of the competent local entities to cooperate with us, and the individuals too. Public biddings and job vacancies will be advertised on the newspaper in the near future, so all the local entities and individuals, please pay attention and wait patiently. To acquire more information and details, please don't hesitate to contact us. Here are the CPP's official contact details for national content, including email address, cppnclc@outlook.com. And our office is located in Kololo, Kampala. And here are the WhatsApp number and the phone numbers, both in Uganda and Tanzania. You are welcome to browse our website for more confidence to cooperate with us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Shishe Dong. I think we should put our hands together. We should give him another round of applause, because he has told us they're looking for local people. He has told us they're looking for local entities, and the address and his phone numbers are on there. So the onus is on you to ensure that you take on the challenge. But I think you all notice that at peak of the construction, they've got 1,500 people. I think it would be nice to understand how many of those are in Tanzania and how many of those are in Uganda. But let's get to that when we get in the Q&A. Allow me to invite the local content guru, David Bishop.
Oh, they've given me a remote control. I usually can't even find this at home. My kids would be watching cartoons by now. So yes, I began my local content career here in Uganda with Tullow Oil. So I worked with Jimmy, I worked with Abdul, who was stood here earlier, and I worked for Ellie, and a better boss I've never worked for. And also worked very collaboratively with the PEPD at that time, quite a number of whom now are in the regulator. And I hope to continue that kind of relation with them on behalf of Worley. So, Worley are in the early stages of mobilizing to Uganda. We're trying to set up a local entity, and we're also seeking offices, looking for offices. But we've already signed subcontracts with 2 local companies. One is Infra Consulting Services, ICS, and the other is New Plan. These are subcontracts with a difference in that they will be integrating with Worley. So their engineers will be working alongside our engineers. It has another difference in that long term, they will be working alongside engineers who have a lot of experience of building pipelines. They will be right in the line of fire of this project. Now, some of you will have heard, most people will have heard of an American diplomat called Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers. Now, he had a couple of things to say about education, and I've used this in my education career. He says, if you tell me, I forget. If you teach me, I remember a bit. But if you involve me, I learn. And this is what we're going to do with ICS and New Plan engineers. We're going to involve them in the project with our engineers. They will learn. We have other ambitions for that relationship because a lot of talk has been had in the first day and the second day about direct, indirect, and induced development because of oil and gas and national content. And with the ambitions of people getting into direct services. And yes, direct services will be needed right throughout the life of the oil field in downhole services, etc. But you've got to ask yourself, what is Uganda going to do with the revenue? It's quite obvious that Uganda will be building its own capacity, and that requires a lot of projects, and that requires construction. And therefore, you need to keep a focus on the indirect sector, because that is construction, and those are the industries that support construction, and that'll be vital for the future. So, my microphone's not working?
The microphone, no, I think you just need to lift it a little bit.
Okay, I'll raise it a bit, okay. People don't usually complain about not being able to hear me. So, this is our schedule. The blue is Tanzania. The piece that you're going to be interested in is the red piece below. So, we have coming up early civil works. Now, as the regulator will remind me immediately, civil works are on the reserve contract list, which means that the contract has to go to a Ugandan company. And that company will have a contract with Eacop, because that's the way it was done in Tanzania. So therefore, that Ugandan company will be a tier 1 contractor. Now, with regard, a little bit later, we'll be looking at the water supply, but the Lot 1 pipeline and AGIs are going to start in sometime during the first half of 2023, next year. Now, Worley doesn't dig trenches. Worley doesn't weld pipes together. Worley doesn't transport pipes up and down the right-of-way. What we do is we assist Eacop with managing the level 1 contractors who do that. So the people we employ are going to be management type people in that they're going to be involved in the management of the process and the management of the project. So I'm visually challenged. I know I'm on the office-based roles because I can just about read that. So I'll have to turn around to have a look at this. I'm not being read, turning my back on you. It's just that I'm rather short-sighted. So you can see there's a number of different disciplines involved there. Everything from engineering to liaison with communities. It's important that communities are involved, that stakeholders are managed properly, that local workforces are managed in line with the International Labour Office guidelines and the Equator Principles. And it's our role in Worley to assist Eacop in doing that. So the engineers and technicians coming in from our local partners will be assisting us in doing that. And they'll be working alongside expatriate specialists and engineers to do it. So that's the sort of office-based roles. Now, please don't try and note them all down, because you will find that this presentation, along with all the other presentations that we do on behalf of Eacop, are on the Eacop website. So you only have to log on to the Eacop website and you can find these and look at them at your leisure. These are the site-based roles. Again, there's going to be quite a lot of what we would call field engineering. So a lot of the engineering that was done back in 2014 through to the present day is not the end of the engineering story. There is other work that needs doing, and the local Ugandan engineers will be involved with our engineers in performing those duties. Now, we call this on-the-job training. It will be properly managed with coaches and mentors, and with some formal training when necessary. But it will be done on a performance management basis and constant 360 feedback. Now, these are some of the project goods and procurement. Now, Worley does a lot of the procurement for the project. A lot of the items that we procure are on behalf of Eacop. They are long lead items. They are either highly technical or they are extremely heavy, or both. And this process has been going on for some time and will continue until well into the end of next year. Every time we do a piece of procurement, we advertise that in an expression of interest, which goes into widely read newspapers in both Tanzania and Uganda, sometimes in both countries, depending on what's being procured. The expression of interest asks you to jump a few hoops about telling us who you are, making sure that you are a properly registered company, that you have a tax PIN, that you have a tax clearance, all the due diligence things that we're looking for, and specifically in Uganda, that you are registered with the National Supplier Database. And if you're a joint venture, that you are a joint venture approved by PAU. If you're none of those things, we cannot award you a contract. So please go onto the PAU website and look up what it means to be on the NSD and look at what it means to be an approved joint venture. These are some of the other things we will be procuring. As you can see, there's a lot of piping, a lot of valves, a lot of pumps. There are loading arms. There are all sorts of things for the marine terminal and so on. Now, when it comes down to us and our operations in Uganda, we'll be looking for transportation for our own engineers to get them up and down the pipeline. We'll be looking for hotel accommodation, of course. We'll be looking for other types of accommodation. Security will be a local contract. Office supplies will be a local contract. IT and equipment is a local contract. And there is an EOA that's presently out looking for Ugandan companies that can supply IT services to Worley. And PPE is, of course, one of the items on the reserve contracts list. So we will award that contract to a Ugandan company. Now, that's our address, if you want to note it down. Our project director is a very nice man called Daniel Rapiti. He will be coming here on a regular basis. The local content manager, stroke national content manager, is myself. When I first arrived in Uganda, it was local content. And the closer you got to the Albertine Graben determined how many locals you put before content. And we had local content, local content, local content, and so on and so on. And then a wise man stood up and said, look, guys, this is Uganda's oil, so there's no such thing as local content. We're going to have national content and community content. I thank him for that, because I was suffering from carpal tunnel syndrome at the time for typing out the word local about 5,000 times a day. So I was very pleased about that. But I think it focuses the mind on what this is about. And a lot of other countries in East Africa, and I've been involved in the Kenyan legislation when I was working for the World Bank in getting the Kenyan local content policy up and running, getting the legislation up and running. I've also been involved with the Ministry of Energy in Mozambique to discuss how they're going to get from where they are to good local content. The one thing I think you need to keep in mind is about participation. It's about Ugandans being able to participate in this project, but not only in this project, but in what comes after. And that requires capacity building. That requires a raising of performance standards. And this is something that we are committed to assisting Eacop in helping you do. You'll notice there's an email saying ecop-supplierinfo@worley.com. Now this has a specific purpose. If you want to register with us as a Ugandan company, we will store your contact information under the products that you supply. So if you're supplying PPE, you will go under the heading PPE, and then all your contact details will be underneath. So you need to tell us the company name, your website, your contact details, description of the equipment and materials or goods and services that you wish to sell us, and an e-copy of the company brochure would be good. What happens then is when we are about to distribute an EOI in Uganda, we will give you a heads up by email to say you need to be keeping your eye on this newspaper because an EOI is about to come out. That's as much notice as we can give you as an EOI, although we are working to give more information. A lot of the goods and services that are currently on the list have not yet been estimated in terms of quantities, mainly because the engineering is still going on. And what comes first is engineering and design, and then you can work out what it is you need. Yeah. Well, I'll pass you on to Bolloré next, or Olivier. Well, I hope what I've said has been interesting to you and has been informative. If you want to stop me and ask some more questions, please do. If you want to email me, my email address is easy. It's just david.bishop@worley.com. It's easy, okay? And I'll answer your emails. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, david.bishop@worley.com. Easy to remember. Probably something they didn't mention is that, in my understanding, is that Worley and Eacop are working together as far as national content is concerned. So if I understand it correctly, David, you're the deputy of Olivier at the Eacop side. So they've kind of integrated it. Because as you heard, Worley is the EPCM, which is the engineering, procurement, and construction management. So they take over all that, and they will be working together, especially when it comes to the procurement. I think the important thing he also mentioned is the one on NSD. Just by show of hands, how many people are registered on the NSD? And Mr. Ernest Lubondo will turn around to check that everybody is. Ernest, just turn around, and you need to do some more work. Clearly, half of the room is not yet registered. I don't know what you're doing here, but you've heard. They won't consider you if you're not on the NSD. And I would now like to invite Bolloré, Winnie, to please give us your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening to you all. Okay, everyone is really tired, so I know you want me out of here. I'll say that again. Good evening to you all. Okay, that's much better. I was glad that there was excitement when you realized that there was a woman up here. So thank you very much, ladies. In regards to national content, I would like to say that the women are also taking up space, so which is really good. But also an advantage to Bolloré that they focused and made sure that it was a woman that was their national content manager, which is me. Over to our presentation today. Bolloré has been in Uganda for more than 50 years. We were first here in 1968, and we have continued to Yeah, he's reminding me. Thank you. So we've been here for more than 50 years. But in Uganda specifically, we focus on freight forwarding, which is transport and logistics. And we have a couple of accreditations, the one being the economic operator in East Africa, which is why we have Eacop. We will have the one that's catered by Bolore, Tanzania, and then Bolore, Uganda. So I will specifically focus on only our scope, which is in Uganda. As Bolore, we already have existing synergies that we work closely with to make sure that we actually maximize local content. As a company, we have over 96% of the employees being Ugandan, and which covers management, technical and non-technical. And then we also have other internships and graduate programs which are available to students as well. Now our synergies are basically transport and operations, heavy lifting, as you can see up there. And all of these are already synergies that we have already engaging with the Ugandan companies. That slide is quite important because it shows you exactly the scope that will be covered in Uganda. Now, I will not go into the nitty-gritties of the engineering aspect of the pipeline itself, but this is the scope that we are going to be able to cover. So like I mentioned earlier, there is a scope. Majority of the scope is covered by Bolore, Tanzania, and then the remaining scope is covered by Bolore, Uganda. So on here are some of the positions that we are going to need, and most importantly, as a transport company, what we need is pretty much the drivers. So we need drivers. So we're going to have about 50 and more of them. And our interest is mostly in the communities. For example, if we have, let's say, 2 drivers applying for the position of driver, and we have one person from another region of Uganda, but one particular person from the pipeline regions, then we will prefer that particular person and not go for the other person that's from another district. So we are trying to make sure that we have all of the communities as engaged as possible. And then those are some of the other positions. Of course, some of the positions are more management positions, so those will require extra expertise, which we will advertise and make sure that we have all of the Ugandans apply for that. And then they're the technical, and then they're the non-technical. For non-technical, we have a preference for the community, because then we can be able to take them through the trainings and have them on board with us. Then these are some of the local services that we will require as a company: road transportation, labor sourcing, hygiene services, catering services. So all these are aspects of the local services that we will require as a company, which are only ring-fenced for Ugandans. But the good thing that already with our expertise of over 50 years, we already have companies that we are working with closely. And the good thing is that most of them already have most of these requirements. They're on the NSD. We ensure and help them, guide them. So that's another thing that we do as the National Content Office, is guide some of these companies on how to make sure that all of the requirements are met by them. If they're having challenges probably registering with NSD, registering with the URA, we kind of give them an opportunity to take them through and help them so that they're compliant and so that we can be able to work closely with them. So that is pretty much what we have for you as a logistics company. We are more than happy to work with any of the Ugandan companies. So feel free. We are on Ntinda Stretcher. Just pass by, and I'm more than happy to receive anybody and have a conversation with them. Just ask for Winnie, and I'll be able to attend to your question and help you. Thank you very much.
A bigger round of applause for the lady. Brilliant. Winnie touched on a pretty sensitive point, and I think it's a point we need to discuss. this community content, so getting from local, then community content. If you're going to hire drivers from that stretch, what does that mean for the guys who use the road in the other regions where they supply the material? So we kind of just need to, again, think about it and see what we do with it. But Winnie, again, a question to think about, which I think might come from the audience, is you said just turn up in Tinder, knock the door and say, I'm Winnie, here I am, I have a truck. Do you entertain something like that? I have a new truck. So, but she'll answer it when the time comes. I would like now to invite Festus to tell us about the electrical and instrumentation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, moderator. I'm privileged to be here to represent Schneider Electric and SNEF and present the EITS scope of the Eacop project and our national local content in that. Schneider Electric and SNEF set up a consortium, so we'll work together as a consortium. Both of them have a permanent establishment in Uganda. Schneider Electric France has a company registered as SEF, and then SNEF has a company registered as Eacop in Uganda. Earlier on, I introduced Schneider Electric as a leading supplier of digital solutions for sustainability and efficiency. In the same light, SNEF is a global supplier for end-to-end services, and it's also interested in multi-technical solutions. Yeah. So as I dive deeper into the presentation, you'll get to know which will do which part. The EITS scope, I would like to maybe cite it out that it's electrical, instrumentation and control, telecommunication and cybersecurity, and that is what we shall be handling for Eacop. So when we focus on the local market in Uganda under electrical, we're looking for partners, local partners who will help us in customs clearance, local logistics of the free issued equipment. Then we shall also look at e-house site installation, so that we're looking at local labor force and testing tools. We're looking at field cable and testing, so there will be a focus on the local labor force as well. We're looking at the plant commissioning, so there will be a focus on the local labor force as well. And then performance tests, we're also looking at the local labor force as well. And then final documentation will be done by the local labor force. That is just the electrical discipline. If I move further under instrumentation and control, we're looking at the importation of equipment within the country. We're looking at prefabricated building equipment workshop, where we shall have a focus on the local labor force. We shall look at field cable termination as well, and we shall have an emphasis on the local labor force. We shall look at plant commissioning, and we shall have an emphasis on the local labor force. We shall look at performance tests, and we shall have an emphasis on the local labor force. And final documentation will be done by the local labor force. And then when you look at the telecom discipline, I think this has a large scope for the local partners. When you look at the telephone system, there's a potential local procurement for it. CCTV systems, we shall do local labor force and potential local procurement. Data and fiber optics cabling will be local labor force. Telecom towers and CCTV masts will be local labor force and potential local procurement. Entertainment equipment, screens, projectors, we're looking at potential local procurement. Assistance for commissioning, we're looking at local labor force as well. Assistance meaning that our expertise will come in, but they will work hand in hand with the local labor force here. And also we're looking at special tools and consumables. We shall look at local procurement for that. Inland logistics as well, and final documentation. These are all areas where we can partner with the local entities here. Just a minute. When we go to the Ugandan, what we expect to employ in terms of employees, We're looking at the management level, we're looking at the technical level, and also we're looking at other or / unskilled level. Under the management level, we're looking at the site director, the site manager, and all that. And we have a target of about 73% overall for both the contractor, us, and the subcontractors that we shall use. That overall, the management, technical, and others, we shall try and meet that. And then for the subcontractor level, we're looking at a 99%. Under management, we have what I've listed there. Then under technical, we have the welders, the secretaries, the technicians, the commissioning engineers. So we will be back to back. We shall have our own as the contractors, and also we shall have subcontractors having their own. Then under unskilled, all other, we're looking at drivers. Yeah, so there's potential for you to engage in. There's something that I wanted to share earlier, just for me to give a brief understanding of the electrical scope. Under the electrical scope, we have switch gears, we shall supply. We have transformers, which we shall supply. And then under instrumentation and control, we're looking at control centers, both here in Tanga and in Uganda. And then under telecommunications, I've already mentioned CCTV, telecom mass, fiber optics, multiplexers. Yeah, we shall supply all that. And we're also looking at still under electrical, the 132 kV GIS for us to supply. So we shall look for partners. We shall be in need of partners for that. Hence this screen for the contact details. For Schneider Electric France, we have a presence, an office on 7th floor, Yusuf Le Road. And also for Eacop, we have an office in Nakawa. And the contact details are cited there. But also feel free to contact me for any engagement. We also have a pre-qualification phase for the people who want to become potential suppliers. So later on, I'll share with you, if you reach out to me, that it will be like a site where you can go, and then you're taken through the steps. So there are some steps you have to take. We have to assess whether you can actually supply, and also whether you've complied with what everyone has said. You're also registered in the database. Yeah, that's pretty much it. My contact details are also, they were cited there, but just for clarity, festo.kasule@se.com. Feel free to reach out to me in case you're interested in the EITS scope. Thank you.
Thank you, Festus. First of all, for keeping time. Before the regulator goes, let's take some questions from the audience, because some of them might be for the regulator. Ernest, when are you changing the name from local content to Ugandan content? Okay, questions from the audience. Who wants to go first? Doesn't appear like we have any questions from the audience. Or is it my eyesight? But there's a gentleman at the back, I'm told. Apologies, my eyesight is not very good. Yeah, there's a gentleman up there. There's a lady out there. And then there's a lady here. The active side tends to be this side for some reason. But please say your name.
My name's Ibrahim Mwesige from Ecotel. Ecotel, we are partners with the Uganda Chamber of Mines. Mine goes to Mr. Kasule, who has just presented. We're into the telecom environment. And my question goes to, I don't know whether sensors are part of your scope of work, and if so, because I know there in the fluid flow there could be changes in the thermodynamics, causing some fluid having accumulation, and that part of your electric engagements or something like that. Then we could also engage you on that. For sensors, that is input-output flow of the oil. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is to Festus. Let's take the second question. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, mine is not a question, but just a piece of information to
Please,
share.
Director, introduce yourself.
Yes, of course I'm going to. My name is Penina Hewa. I work for the Petroleum Authority of Uganda as one of the directors there. I want to thank the presenters for the very, very valuable information shared. And as you can see on each of the contracts or service, there's a portion for Uganda, there's a portion for Tanzania. But there are those specific services that are exclusively in Tanzania. For example, I think the coating plant, a number of aspects are exclusively located in Tanzania. But just to say, even for those, we have kind of tried to see how Ugandans can benefit in those ones. So even for those, there's some aspects that will benefit Ugandans. But all I wanted to share is we can benefit more in even those ones that are in Tanzania by becoming or joint venturing with the Tanzanians. We have different definitions for a Tanzanian company and a Ugandan company, which we are trying to harmonize. It may not be solved today or tomorrow, but that shouldn't deter us from benefiting from the opportunities that are in Tanzania. One of the ways is to get onto their database, and the only way of doing that is entering into a JV with a Tanzanian, and that way you will be able to benefit from the services there. But at the same time, the ones that we still have here in the country are also good enough for all of us. But for us to be able to gain experience on some of those that are on the other side, that is the way we can do it, joint venturing with the Tanzanians. We get onto their database, and then we'll be able to benefit from that side. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Penina. Did I hear that for you to get on the National Supplier Database of Tanzania, you need to joint venture with a Tanzanian company, whereas in Uganda, you do not need to have to joint venture with a Ugandan company, right?
Yes, that's correct. I think for them, they only register Tanzanians. And for you to be considered a Tanzanian, either you're purely Tanzanian or you're in a JV with a Tanzanian. And there are specific percentages there that you need to fulfill. Maybe Bishop can say more on that.
Okay, that's an important point, especially when we talk about the Ugandan company, because in Uganda, correct me if I'm wrong, the lawyers in the room, but you do not need to just be a Ugandan. I think you need, there are some regulations, so we probably need to tighten. Any other comment, question? Yes, please.
Is this thing working? Yeah, Jimmy, if you're in Uganda, no, you don't need to be, and a joint venture, that joint venture needs to be approved by PAU.
Yeah.
Because PAU will be looking to make sure that the Ugandan partner has a fair share and is also contributing to the work of that joint venture. Because it's only by contributing to the work of that joint venture that they will build capacity. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. You had a question?
Yes. My name is Emmanuel Chagara. I'm the CEO of Milima Security, and it's a pleasure. I want to thank the moderator and the presenters. It's been very excellent. I want to commend Mr. Kasule for the services around cybersecurity and the various technologies. I was almost getting shocked that the entire day we had gone through without addressing issues around security or even someone raising it up. At Milima, we are probably the only cybersecurity company in Uganda. Many of us are non-Ugandan. Now, the need for cybersecurity cannot go without being emphasized enough. On such a platform where we are talking about value retention and creating resilience within the oil and gas sector. While we are talking about digital assets, but ignoring the rising level of cyber threats, it becomes counterproductive. So I think this is something that we should continue to have, and if we can even have more emphasis on it. And also this is an offer to you, Mr. Kasule. I'm happy to have a discussion with you on the side to see what kind of partnerships we can explore along those lines. But definitely it is an area that we must have as much focus on as we go digital. The level of cyber threats goes, it is only growing. And so it is very important that we look at it very critically. Thank you very much.
Thank you for emphasizing that point. There was a question around the debt. Is it the end of 2025, or are there some worries or headwinds that we need to take into account given everything that is happening? And that could be answered by Olivier, Philippe, the Deputy MD of Eacop. Who wants to take it away?
The mic is in my hands. The nature of complex projects is that the date you are given, there is always a plus minus. The president requested, can you bring 2025 to 2024? That he prefers the minus. The plus comes because of the complexity of projects. I think you already mentioned, the moderator, about the challenges we are facing with Russia. Not Russia, the conflict in Ukraine. My apologies to the Russian comrades in the house. We are very good friends with Russia. So that affects us in different ways. We need to access line pipe. We also know that there is always financial viabilities with the Russians. Russians have some good amounts of money. And so that affects us in different ways. We have to recalibrate a number of things. And so that adds a plus. Where we fall, as long as we don't exceed an additional 6 months, that's not too bad for a project like this. So it can still be a plus or a minus. We have heard CPP saying they can build this line in 24 months. That also has a plus and a minus. So let's agree that there will be flexibility. And if you allow me, I wanted to make a rallying call in regard to national content, national participation. We have always spoken to the fact, every Ugandan asks, what is in need for us as Ugandans? You have heard the detail. You have been given the means, what you need to do to participate. I don't think you are going to ask for more content than you have been given. If you have forgotten anything, you have been given the packages. We have told you the Eacop website is going to be open very soon. Every package will have its detail, all the specialties, every subcontract that is advertised will be there. Kindly do your bit. Ensure you have the minimum requirements to participate. Because if you don't, then you fall out of line. And then you will say, I was not given the opportunity to participate. So it's a rallying call to fellow Ugandans to ensure that you organize yourselves. I will close the rallying call with another quotation. I just repeat what my elder always says. He has told us before, the quote he picked from Shakespeare, that, and we are really at the break of a tide right now. The tide has broken. This is Shakespeare. There is a tide in the affairs of men and women, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat. And we must take the current. We must take the current when it serves, or we lose our ventures. Thank you very much. Let's go and do it.
Thank you. Thank you. But I think there was a question for Festus, and as Festus gets ready to, can I ask Caroline to please join us and give us some 5 minutes of the role of insurance. But Festus? I don't think it's working. Anyway, maybe you'll have a one-on-one with him since it was a very personal question. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking our wonderful panel and for the presentations that they've given us. And I think they've given us quite a lot of information about the future contracts. Thank you very much. And you can please take leave. Can I also invite Marcus to introduce Caroline?
Please let's give moderator Mr. Jim Mugero a big round of applause for that very insightful Eacop conversation. So I have two quick things before we can leave. The first is I'll invite Caroline in a moment to give us a word or two about the insurance and how they're going to play in this space. But first, we have a draw to do. And I'm going to ask our lead sponsor CEO, Madam Anjuko, to please come on stage and help me do this draw. The people from Bar Aviation have been receiving your business cards. They have a return ticket to Bwindi, all expense paid for 2 people. If you didn't drop in your business card, I would like to inform you it's too late. In case you're wondering who they are based at Kajansi Airfield. They offer helicopter services, passenger flights, aerial surveys, air medical evacuation services, drone services, and many aviation solutions. So, Dorothy, how does this work? Maurice Amagola from, I think, Aeon Minute. Going once. Going twice. Help me say gone. I thank you. Derek Natumanya, ICS.
Oh, wow.
And I think he just dropped in his card now. How annoying is that? Let's give Derek a round of applause. Congratulations. As they say, better late than never. Well done. Thank you. So, congratulations. Okay, so I am going to ask our lead sponsor to quickly give a vote of thanks before Caroline gives her remarks quickly. Before I do that though, somebody lost a phone, a Samsung phone. The screensaver is an elephant. I don't know if it's an actual picture or it's a drawing, but you have to find me. And also these AirPods still haven't been collected, so these two items still need to be collected. So our lead sponsor, CEO Stanbic Bank, Ms. Ann Juko, will give her closing remarks on this oil convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Marcus. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. In the interest of time, please allow me to dispense with the protocol, but recognize you in your capacity. I want to begin by thanking you for a wonderful and engaging conference. You have been an excellent audience. To be here today, to still be in the room at this time, is testimony to how interested you are. So please do clap for yourselves. Also, I continue to thank the speakers, the presenters, and everybody else who has worked to bring it here, to bring us to this level. That thank you for a job well done. The content is excellent and timely and meaningful, so we are very, very grateful. In a special way, I'd like to thank the following people. I thank the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Energy, the regulator in absentia, but I know he's ably represented, PAU, Total, CNOC, and all the other participants. And mostly, I'd like the Chamber to thank the Chamber for a job well done. Thank you very, very much. For the last 8 years, Stanbic Uganda has been walking this journey. We have been, long before it was fashionable, we have been here. We've been working this journey, we've been sponsoring this conference, we've been working with you to get ourselves ready. So today is especially gratifying, the last 2 days, to see 800 people. In the first day, I'm not sure what the count was today, but yesterday was at least 800 of us come to attend and participate and learn. Is really, really gratifying for us to know that the seeds we planted in conjunction with the government 8 years ago are starting to bear fruit. In this journey to First Oil, Stanbic remains committed. Not just involved, but committed. There's a difference between being involved and being committed. And I'll give you an example. If you know the story of eggs and bacon. In the production of eggs, a chicken is involved, gives the egg and walks away. In the production of bacon, that person is committed. That's a joke, so we can, if you haven't gotten it, sorry, but it's really to say that we are committed, and we've been here a long time, we'll continue to be here. We have been working on several areas that are of note. The first being the pre-FID. It's exciting to be here because we already have post-FID. But the real work started well before FID. Getting ready, getting everybody in the space to be able to be here today is work that has taken a very, very long time. If we talk about our involvement, is in many, many categories, but the single most important one is capacity building. If you heed the call and the quote from Shakespeare about the time being now and us being ready, and bring it into oil and gas, we're really talking about readiness as local content. The law has been written very well, but are we ready as Ugandans to participate? And I'm pleased to report and to share with you, friends, that we at Stanbic are ready to walk the journey with you. And to that end, in consultation with the Chamber, I'm pleased to announce that we will continue the conversations here with a monthly half-day conversation. Every month, we will take one subject and delve in it in detail. The first month will be the tax conversation, which we know is readily, everybody has expressed an interest and remains yet to be understood. And Stanbic will be sponsoring those in-depth monthly conversations. So you're all welcome back here. Every month, we will share with you the subject matter experts in a particular area. We will tackle taxes, we will tackle ESG, we will tackle so many other subjects that you tell us are in depth. All this in a bid to get you to be ready. It is one thing for the meal to be served, but if we're not ready to partake, we will look on as it indeed sails by. In addition, I also like to confirm our commitment and participation, especially given our size and history. Friends, Standard Bank Africa comes with 170 billion US dollars in total assets as at the end of December 2021. Of that, 90 billion is loans and advances lent to customers on the continent. What we're talking about from a capability and capacity point of view is not something we are going to do. It's something we are already doing. We've done it in Mozambique, we've done it in Nigeria, we're doing it in Ghana, we're doing it in so many other places. So Uganda will not be any different. We are here, we have been here, we've walked the journey with you, and indeed we will continue to do the same. As I close, I want to also mention a few other areas where we have intervened. There are very few organizations that have a training school. We have a training school. We like to call it the Stanbic Incubator, but at the core of that is capacity building and training. This capacity building is across different regions. We now have 5 centers across the country. We have a center in Hoima. And in Hoima, we are working with the local content to make sure that the people in Hoima are able to produce goods, agricultural produce, that can be consumed by their neighbors in the camps in the oil and gas sector. We're doing the same in Mbale. We have a big one in Kampala. We have one in Gulu and another one in Barara. This is the 5 schools that we have across the country that do nothing but capacity building. To that end, friends, I want to invite you to participate in our incubator programs. They're free of charge, and they're not restricted to Stanbic customers only. So every Ugandan, wherever you are, can come and participate. And we've also partnered with the large main contractors. We're working in conjunction with CNOC. We're working in conjunction with many others to be able to get what the contractor wants and break it down to the Ugandan company to say, if you're going to partner with CNOC, this is what you need to do. These are the standards you need to adhere to. This is the kind of reporting. This is the quality of produce. That, friends, we have been doing for the last 6 years. We will continue to do. In fact, we will intensify. Like he told us, the time is now, and indeed it will be. In addition to that, you heard yesterday when the regulator was talking about inter-sector linkages, that when we finally get to where we're going, every single sector will be impacted and will be changed. Our role today is to find out how is each of those sectors going to be changed, where are the opportunities, and more importantly, what are we doing to harness those opportunities in full? Friends, I'm pleased to report that Stanbic Bank Uganda is sponsoring the knowledge and the research that is going into these intersector linkages. Already, we have worked with the education sector linkage into oil and gas, transport into oil and gas, land use planning, and as of last year, we added agriculture and housing and real estate planning. So that at no point do you say that, for me, I'm in agriculture and therefore I can't participate in oil and gas. There's a firm linkage that you can, not leakage, but linkage, sorry. The same is true for housing. The same is true for education. The same is true for transport. And there's one that I've just been discussing with the regulator before he left, that there is a need for hospitality and tourism. And that is work that we will continue to take on. As I close, friends, I want to thank you one more time, but I also want to take this opportunity to welcome you to Stanbic. We have taken the oil and gas sector and we have owned it from the beginning. We will continue to do so. The work that needs to be done is not just about writing the check. That is the easiest part. The real work is getting Ugandan companies to a place where they can compete. The real work is getting Ugandans to a place where they are ready to partner. This thing we call JVs is not natural to us, joint ventures. We like to do our little things like this. How do we get ourselves into the mindset? How do we ready our structures, our controls, our reporting? There was a conversation earlier about being on a national register, the PAU register. And when I talk to customers, some of the participants, they say, I don't want to register, because then the URA will know what I'm doing. Tax compliance is good for you. It is the minimum if you want to play where you need to play. So these are the conversations. Every single month, we will have a workshop in conjunction with the chamber where we delve deep into one part. So we will talk about what does it take to register on the national database. But first and more urgently, from what I've been guided, we will start with the tax matters. What does the URA expect? How do you become compliant? How do you separate that of your business, which is exempt because it's oil and gas, and that which isn't? So those are the things, that the value-adding things, the real hard work that must be done for us to get ourselves ready. With those few remarks, I want to thank you and welcome you to our monthly sessions that will be starting within 30 days from today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please give our lead sponsor another round of applause. And more importantly, for those monthly sessions, that requires an applause on its own. And I think that, especially with regards to that tax matter that we had here earlier on, I mean, we all know Ugandans how we operate. They'll tell you, yes, this thing is for tax when he's going to build a small hotel in Burisa. But he's right, it's going to Burisa, but it's just not going to the camp. He's opening another business. So we need to be tax compliant, and it's very, very commendable that Stanbic has taken this up. Now, among the things, of course, that will be discussed is insurance. Also a very big matter. So, as we wind up day 2, allow me to invite Miss Caroline Tayebwa, who's also a sponsor here today from UAP, Old Mutual. Please come and quickly give your 2 remarks, and then we can all head to the cocktail.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. I'm privileged to be here to represent UAP Old Mutual. I may be the last speaker, but not the least, because insurance is quite critical. And this evening, just allow me quickly go through my deliberations to be able to make you understand the purpose of insurance. So UAP Old Mutual is the leading and largest insurance company in the globe and in Uganda, because we offer holistic solutions and convenience to enable our customers realize their dreams. We are glad to partner with individuals and corporates like you and individuals worldwide to be able to offer solutions. And these are financial services, including general insurance. Life insurance is very critical for everybody of us. Medical insurance, this is inevitable. We also work with investments, and that's in management, securities, and properties, among others. We also deal with pensions, and all this is situated at Nakawa Business Park, one of the largest business parks in town. So in the interest of time, I'll just peruse through our values. It's very critical to understand that we work with integrity. You need to trust us, and we are accountable. We respect each other and the communities we serve. That's very important. We champion the customers. We work with you I like to joke that my customers are my everyday life, and just like my colleagues. We are agile, innovative, and we try to make a difference. Every day of our lives, we try to make a difference. The power of diversity and inclusion is quite critical, and we are happy to mention that we believe and go through on our daily life to actively diversify and make a difference. So this part of the CSR, I don't go through. My colleagues yesterday and this early afternoon mentioned most about the overview, so I'll just quickly go through. The upstream sector, we have exploration, development and production, as we all know now. The downstream sector, that's refining and storage, marketing and retail. Midstream, we have activities that include supply and trade, shipping, and others. So we have the clarifications under onshore risks and offshore risks, but I'll quickly dive through to the most important of the purpose of the insurance in the oil and gas value chain. So the critical role that we play is on offshore and onshore. The oil wells, you can't do without insurance. There's production and exports. There's operators. There are rigs. This is critical that you have insurance. Flooriness. We have the onshore, we have refineries, we have wellheads, we have petrochemical plants and pipelines, you saw Eacop. We have the gas processing plants and retail outlets. We have the land rigs, oil tanks, and the processing that you can't do without insurance because you need to be sure that you're protected in case of anything. And anyhow, sometimes we are not God. Something will go wrong. I'm not being a prophet of doom, but you need us, and please utilize us so that we can make use of the insurance that there is. We can add value in the national content. So the key places that you must note is upstream. What type of insurances do you need? There's property damage insurance, marine hull, marine cargo, operation extra expense, there's construction erection or risks, business interruption. This is very critical. You saw what happened when COVID-19 disrupted us. In case you're not operating, you really need to be insured so that you can be able to have a backup. You're protected. We want to be your best friend when things are bad. There's third-party liability, the people who don't know what you're trying to do, the people who don't know why you're doing what you're doing. But I can tell you that third-party liability is very critical for every contractor, subcontractor, and subcontractor in here. You really need insurance. The energy package, that's very critical. And then we go down to downstream. You have all risks where you need your insurance in terms of your properties. Everything needs to be insured, including the laptop or the phone that you have. You need the insurance. There is marine cargo right now because we're just at the startup. You're importing in things. You really need, and you're transporting from one place to another, you really need to be insured. It could be an accident. Your cargo needs to be protected. I mentioned about a business interruption as well as third-party liability, the construction and erectional risks, the goods in transit. As we leave from here to Hoima, those goods could get a challenge. Those goods could get a problem. We are here. Trust us. Let's be your friend in terms of need. In terms of trouble, we are happy to serve. And then there's personal accident. Your workers need that, as well as workman's compensation for the casual laborers. You really need, we will talk much more because of time. I don't want to go into the detail. But as well as motor, I think everybody of us, you need not just third party, but comprehensive insurance. So we really need to work together. And as we prospect through the oil and gas, I see some people across the room, and these are some of the brokers that you really need to work with. These are partners. Yesterday they mentioned about collaboration. So we don't really look at people as, or the other companies as competition. We look at them as collaborators and, partners, because we are here to develop the national content and add value as an industry, not just as UAP Old Mutual. So we work with brokers. You can approach us directly. I said our key office is at Nakawa. We work through financial institutions. I was happy and smiling as the lead sponsor, being a bank, was speaking, because it means a lot to keep adding value today, tomorrow, and the next day. We are happy to partner with you and make sure we make a difference in the industry. We have underwriters, I see across the room. Some of the other insurance companies, like I mentioned, we're collaborators, and we want to make a difference in your lives, in your companies, and everywhere you are, because we share. The business is just too much. And I'm happy to know that some of you have already taken the quick and quite important decisions to be able to take on insurance, because it's quite important. And through this, what they call co-insurance, I saw the leader for Eacop. Eacop is a consortium for insurance, like they earlier mentioned. So we partner and make sure that each one of us picks a bit of the cake so that you can be protective and be able to add value in our nation. And not forgetting the reinsurers. For example, Uganda Re, we cannot forget them. And all of us, we work through the regulator. That's IRA, Insurance Regulatory Authority, that guides us on what do we do, and do we price it rightly? Do we pay the claims, which is very critical. Besides trying to win you, we all need to honor our promises. So I'm happy that this evening has been quite important, and you've given me your valuable time. As I conclude, because of time I was rushing through, allow me to introduce my colleagues. Kindly just stand up for recognition so that other networking session or just after here, we can add much of this and be able to share more knowledge and scale. UAP Old Mutual members, please stand up quickly. Yes, those are my colleagues. Thank you, and thanks for listening. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. It is cocktail time, but before we go, I want to ask our host, who was the first person to speak yesterday, to be the last person to speak today. The chairman of the chamber, Mr. Patrick Mwehire.
Can I do it from here?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. I won't be long, but I just wanted to say, wow, what an amazing couple of days it's been. I think you'll agree with me. We had amazing content. We had very rich dialogue. We had an amazing participation from not just the participants, you, but even the partners and the sponsors. And the amount of transparency and information sharing that was given has just been incredible. So I just want to thank everybody, not just the participants, the sponsors, the contractors. Thank you for sharing. We've been looking for this day for a very long time, and I can tell you that what we saw in the last couple of days has been by far, I think, the deepest conversation we've had about oil and gas, and I've been around this for a long time. So thank you. I also wanted to say that, going forward, I think you can see the role that the chamber plays, and the way we've pivoted it from sort of just being a lobbying to kind of creating and adding value. There are a lot of emerging issues that are coming out of this oil and gas. All the things we spoke about, there's still some people who are against some of these contracts, the ESGs, the issues that we have to face. So we'll continue to play that role, whereas we're playing a space to bring that information together, package it, and then show what the country is doing. Not only just from an environmental impact point of view, the stuff that the private sector is doing, what the government is doing, but we just sit in a very nice neutral place where we can pull all of that together. So you continue to see that, and we continue to ask for your support as we do that, because this is a very tricky industry. Information is very hard to come by, and you need somebody who can play that leading role. So we'll continue to do that, and we thank for the sponsors to continue to support us, because we'll need your sponsorship. I must say it's a lot easier now to get sponsorship. I remember the first days I'd walk around with Uncle Eli here, begging for sponsors, but now we get called, which is amazing. So we hope that will stay the case. So thank you, sponsors. Then the last group I would like to thank are what I call my lady warriors, the ladies from the Secretariat. I don't know where they are, Catherine, where's Pamela? All the guys, a lot of work went into this. We've been working on this for many, many months now, getting the agenda right, getting the moderators right, the sequencing. So I really want you guys to help me and put a very big round of applause to that Secretariat. Because this would not have been possible without those lady warriors. You don't see them, but they're in the back, they're always working. So thank you again. I also want to thank, of course, the guys who helped today. There was Tony Otoa, there's Pamela, there's Marcus, Michael Mohanji, all the guys who are behind the scenes to try and make this happen. We really appreciate. So with those few remarks, I look forward to the 9th Annual Oil and Gas Convention. We'll be telling you what dates and what we're going to be talking about. Have a great evening and hope we can see you upstairs for the cocktail. Cheers.
Okay, so he has said it all. Thank you very much, all ladies and gentlemen. Like he said, let's meet up at the cocktail, network, exchange numbers, joint ventures of any kind, and enjoy the evening. Thank you.